That's it. We're on the air, in the air, on the podcast.
I can feel it coming in the air tonight.
Do-do, 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 do-do.
Talk about epic songs.
Yeah, that's
It's actually an odd song. Sometimes I can't listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't explain it, but it's too much to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also an epic song that every once in a while I love to just like if I'm in a car and I just like blare it. It just sounds great.
Is he's healthy, right? He's okay. Phil Collins, he's still alive, right?
So I'm not a Phil Collins follower. I do believe he didn't we talk about this? I thought someone told me, I don't know if it was you or someone else, but he like sat the wrong way or had something going on with his seating position playing drums for so long that it's kind of messed him up. And now I don't think he plays. I think when he does some shows and I think he's just kind of like sitting or not playing instruments. I'm a little spotty on what's going on, but I think he wasn't in the best of ways, but he's been still I think doing some gigs, maybe doing some touring. I think he looked a little bit rough,
Really?
which is a little sad, but I hope he's I hope he's doing okay.
Hmm. That's too bad.
Yeah.
I hate it when you hear out of the blue that an artist that you enjoyed is suffering, some awful, or they just die, and you didn't realize that,
Right.
you know, they were sick.
Well, this is page 6, so not sure of the validity, but Phil Collins can barely hold drumsticks due to health issues. So
Really?
it's sad. I'm not really sure what's going on with him, but to answer your question, but
He is suffering some sort of
something's, yeah, I think he's struggling a bit.
Really?
Suffering a bit, which is sad.
our best wishes to Phil Collins.
Yes, and Phil, we know you're probably listening, so
He's a huge fan of anything bicycle and bike shop related.
he likes the BSS.
Yeah, doesn't everybody?
I mean,
Oh, actually,
eventually.
if you we forgot on the last episode, we forgot to ask people to subscribe.
Oh, subscribe, subscribe.
Right? Isn't that what all the cool podcasts say? They say subscribe.
Smash
yes,
that like
smash
button.
the like button.
Why is it always smash? Why not just
I don't
click?
know.
I mean, if I literally smash it, I'm out of a laptop.
Yeah,
These are expensive.
very expensive.
Um,
Yeah, just subscribe. Just gently push.
it would be awesome if
Mm-hmm.
you subscribed.
Mm-hmm. Leave a review of some
Whoa.
sort, right? Don't they say they ask for reviews?
I feel like that's asking a lot.
Do we want a review? I don't want to. I don't care.
Well,
you
be
think,
careful
do
what
we?
you wish for.
Yeah, I don't want. Don't.
Be nice.
Really?
If you do leave a review,
Only nice ones.
be nice. Have a
Nice
drink or
ones.
two.
Make it funny.
Get in the mood.
Yeah, enjoy. Like, make it all up.
Have your dog on your lap. Pet your dog.
Yeah, I don't. No.
But I think people, yeah, I think it'd be awesome if, I believe that's kind of, I'm not a specialist, but I believe that's how it does a lot for you in your podcast. If people like it, share it, subscribe. I mean, it's probably obvious and common sense, but
Mm-hmm.
it'd be awesome if people thought, hey, maybe you know who would like this? Joe or Bill or that weird cycling uncle who wears those
You send them
spandex.
you send them a link.
You send them a link.
That's what you do these days.
Is that what you do these days?
Right? Then you send them a link.
You don't print it out
No. No.
on your dot matrix.
No. You don't print your directions anymore from MapQuest?
So the other day,
Mm-hmm.
my girlfriend, I think we were cruising around Colorado, and the other day she just was talking about whatever, but she was making a reference to online maps or whatever, and she literally said MapQuest, just without thinking,
Yeah.
because it was just
It
it popped into her brain
Uh-huh.
wherever language works, and instead of Google Maps or whatever, she said MapQuest, and
That
I'm
was
like, I'm like, babe, you just said MapQuest.
MapQuest, man. Remember MapQuest? That
I
was a
kind of
game
loved
changer
it.
for like
Oh,
I
are
don't
you
know,
kidding?
3 or 4 years, right?
People printed out MapQuest.
Oh yeah.
How many trees were lost to MapQuest?
I don't know, man. People would come to me with like little books because we're located off of like off a tollway, like a major like
Oh,
interstate, and people would get lost, and they'd come, and I'd have like some little old lady show up with 8 sheets of paper,
oh man.
and you'd have to put them in order because nothing made sense to you.
Oh, and then hopefully they were in color.
Oh yeah,
If
well,
they were black and white, sometimes you miss a key element.
yeah, it was a little funky. It was a little funky.
MapQuest.
MapQuest. Yeah,
Yeah, MapQuest was the bomb.
they're not around anymore, are they? MapQuest.
I have definitely not heard of them. I don't even want to Google it. Like who knows what's going on. Hopefully that person is on a beach in Florida
I hope they
somewhere.
cleaned up for like
You
save their
know,
money.
yeah. Hope they have a nice, you know, nice, nice, a nice pied a terre, a nice
I hope
home on the beach. They have a nice car. They have a nice bike.
maybe Google bought them or something cool like that.
They go to their local favorite restaurant, and people are like, "Hey,
Hey, hey,
hey,
you know who that guy is
you know
right
that
there?
guy is?
He's the old MapQuest guy.
Remember MapQuest?
Yeah, look at that.
That's him. That's
That's
the guy."
him. He's the original dude. MapQuest. There's still a MapQuest.com.
I wonder what the age, like, where does it stop where people just don't know what MapQuest is? Like, what was the year? You know what I mean? Like, people above a certain age will all know MapQuest, and people below a certain age will probably not know MapQuest. I wonder what that year is.
And we'll do a deep dive into the world of MapQuest. It was launched in 1996. MapQuest.
You know what? I think we should do a serial podcast series just about the MapQuest guy
Mm-hmm.
or woman.
It was founded in Chicago. It
Oh,
was founded.
see, this is getting creepy.
Yeah, that's weird. We'll do. The parent organization was AOL and Yahoo's.
Oh, that makes sense.
There are a couple of people. Chris.
It's a
Heath.
great name, MapQuest. I
Mhm.
mean, Quest it's such a beautiful word. It has so much like loaded into it. Um, yeah, printing out directions. I remember that. I remember like people like telling you in emails like, "Hey, come to my party. Here are the directions. You can print them out."
MapQuest.
Oh, and it's crazy now. Well, in terms of cycling, I have to say, I mean, obviously online maps have been a game changer for everyone on planet Earth,
Mhm.
probably. But for cycling, like, it's kind of cool. Obviously, Strava, apps like that
Mm-hmm.
have done some cool stuff with.
Do you use a lot? Do you use the Strava?
I
Do
do
you
use Strava. I've been a little off the bike
Mm-hmm.
the past year, but pretty I was pretty consistent for 2-3 years leading up to the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
and I was using Strava almost daily.
Just to record your data or to actually find places
So
to ride?
that's a good question. A little bit of both.
Mhm.
Earlier on, it was all about just recording my amazing wattage, my amazing power numbers
Yep.
and
Mm-hmm.
performance numbers.
Yeah, those were things to just
Yeah.
behold.
I'm definitely using air quotes here. But seriously, like later, like as time went on and
Mhm.
as the app became more robust and they developed it more, and they've done a lot of cool stuff. This isn't a promo for Strava. I don't think it's perfect. And there's some elements to any kind of like app like Strava where, things get a little bit kind of weird. Just the idea of like, oh, if you didn't record it on Strava, did you really ride? Just that kind of sentiment sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, like later when they made it more robust, they've done some cool stuff with it now. Like if you drop in a town and you don't know it, and you just want to go out and find like a good loop. I mean, it's pretty easy to find now on apps like Strava. You can find it elsewhere too, but if you're familiar with Strava, you can find like the cool loop. Obviously, if you want to do KOMs, if that's kind of your thing,
Mm-hmm.
or QOMs. But yeah, I ended up using it a little bit more for those purposes, but still probably mainly to record my rides.
Mm.
I like the idea of when I was kind of trying to do more performance or like more competitive racing and stuff. Um, had the coach and the power meter and all that.
You had all the.
Oh, hell yeah, yeah.
What kind of power were you using? What were you using to measure power?
So actually, I had a couple different ones because I was doing some like test review stuff, and I'm definitely not like a power meter specialist nerd
Mm-hmm.
kind of guy. I couldn't tell you all about the great fine details. I know there are a lot of people who do that, and fair play to them. Um, but I did use a couple different power meters. I
Mm-hmm.
used Stages,
The
which
left-hand crank
so
arm.
they eventually came out with the dual.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have the left one, and I
Mm-hmm.
used that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I didn't use it super long, and then I got one that was I used the Quark,
Mm-hmm.
um,
That's
the,
a SRAM.
SRAM company,
Mm-hmm.
and that one, with the spider, you kind of add it to the crankset.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I used that one, and that was fantastic. That's almost like I think one of the best ones,
Mm-hmm.
probably the SRM, and that one. Again, I'm not a specialist on this, so if someone is and they're listening to this, they might be like, "Huh?" But I think the Quark one was like it's like super accurate. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely expensive, but I had it on a loan review, so I kind of wrote it. I wrote it and then I wrote about it.
Gotcha.
But I used that for like a lot of cross and like my training. I'd have my little zones, and my coach is like, try to do this and try to do that, and sometimes
That was on a road bike or
a cross
a
bike,
cross bike.
yeah. And then I did have a really nice Cannondale, a very nice high-end Cannondale, more bike than I deserved for sure, but I was happy to ride it for a while. That had a built-in, I forget the brand, but they have, I don't know if Cannondale owns them, but they have a company they use for their power meters, and that was built into the bike. That came with the bike for as an upgrade.
It was a crank base, though, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna look it up really quick, but that was that came with the bike as like an upgrade, so it was
Mm-hmm.
all built in. So
Yeah,
I just had the app, and
hooked up to it.
it just goes to whatever head unit. Like I had a Garmin, and
Mm-hmm.
um, but oh yeah, Power 2 Max. It's Power number 2 Max is the one that came with that bike. So I don't know if they own that or it's a company they work with, or what have you, but that was also very accurate and really good
Mm-hmm.
to record my
Massive numbers.
modest, the other M word, the modest numbers. But it was kind of cool. Like I never took it super seriously because
Yeah.
I like to mostly race for the workout and have a lot of fun and all that. But there's always a side of me that's like I want to be kind of competitive and improve. So if you can, get your FTP up,
Mm-hmm.
5 or 10 points over a period of time, like
Yeah,
that,
why
that,
not?
that was a cool challenge. And then um, you do like the power test, like 20 minutes, ride all out. You do like 2 or 3 of those a year, and like you can compare them. And it was cool, and you get faster.
Well, you know what and so in the last year or so, I had kind of avoided, thankfully, all of that stuff
Yeah,
for the last 20 years.
it can
15,
get a
20
little out
years.
of control.
Yeah, I avoided it all, and I
Yeah,
own a bike shop. I mean, I have a bike shop, and it was stuff that kind of, I had one or two customers that had some of that stuff, but not enough to actually care about it.
yeah.
It's not like, nobody that was in the pro tour is coming through the shop, except for Christian Vanderbilt every once in a while.
Christian Vandervelde,
Yeah,
our local
my
World Tour pro,
my old friend.
Tour de France guy.
But nobody that um, nobody who I really cared to listen to
Yeah.
their numbers and wattage
Hey
and stuff.
man,
Yeah, like
I was doing 400 watts.
I'm like, are you in Are you in the Tour de France? Are you in the Tour de France?
Yeah.
Um, but what happened in the last year or so since the pandemic is that I started getting like grandmas, little old ladies coming in talking about their wattage.
You're kidding me.
No,
Wait, but on their regular bikes or like
no,
Pelotons and stuff?
Pelotons.
Yeah, because no, that's so
because they were
cool.
getting Pelotons.
That is so interesting because I remember something similar hearing about that. I don't know if it was like on Twitter or what have you, but all of a sudden, people
Yes.
who never knew about watts,
Never.
and I know there's a thing called the watt bike,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, the Pelotons, and all of a sudden now they know what watts are
Yes.
and what a good wattage is.
Yes. and they were talking about their wattage, and they
It's
were
so,
talking about their, their RPMs, and they were talking about their heart rate and heart rate variability,
oh
and
my God.
they were just talking about certain
Max
things
wattage.
that was starting to, and I didn't
I did
know.
1,000 watts in the sprint.
Yeah, I didn't know what their wattage meant.
Yeah,
I
right.
didn't know if they.
That's the thing. If you don't know, it's like,
I'm like, I didn't know if that
meaningless.
was a
It sounds
lot.
like a lot,
Is
but
that a lot or is
yeah,
that a little?
right.
I'm like, well, a 60-watt light bulb is pretty
Yeah.
bright.
You're like, okay, Marcel Kittle can do 1,000 watts. Okay,
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
and
That's so funny.
and so I
The
thought,
Peloton effect.
yeah. So it was. I'm like, okay, it's time. And I also had some people. I had sold a handful of those those
Stages, yeah,
stages
yeah,
ones. People weren't stepping up. I mean, my customer base wasn't requesting SRMs.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
Um,
Well, those are like several $1,000s.
Yeah, they're even a little steep for me to dip my toe into those waters yet. Although I think they're still the coolest looking.
Oh, they are super cool
They're the
looking. I
pro. They're
love
the
the original ones,
oh
like
with
Bobby Julich
the
had.
big unit up in
Yep, and it
the
said
red
SRM, and
SRM.
it
Yeah,
just felt like so, I don't know, like
yeah,
East German, like
yeah.
Olympic, like
They're gonna kill you.
what's the Ivan Drago,
Uh
like
huh.
just kind of like real
Yeah.
machine
Oh
robotic.
yeah,
Like
you look down at the crank and it was just like.
I must do 2,000 watts in the sprint.
You know that back when I was in.
Now everyone's got a frickin' watt, head
Well,
unit or
back
whatever.
then it was the only pro guys that had that were the guys that were potentially going to win the tour.
Right, because
So
they had to meter out, no
yeah,
pun intended, exactly.
they
Like,
were the only ones, like even regular pros didn't
right,
have it.
right. No, yeah, yeah.
I mean, when I got to Europe,
I know Bobby Julich was one of the first, I think.
well, Americans were always pushing it.
Well,
So
especially Julich,
yeah,
he was so into performance
yeah,
and all of that.
yeah,
Like he was naturally like that as a person, I
yeah,
believe, and then as a cyclist for sure.
yeah.
But you're right. There was like usually just the team leader had it because it was so
It was expensive.
even for teams so
Yeah,
freaking expensive. And
yeah.
a lot of people they had no they were ignorant. They had no they were illiterate. They didn't know what to do with it.
No, they didn't know
What do you
it.
do with the data? What does that mean?
I had a polar heart rate monitor
What's a 500 FTP mean? I don't know.
when I got to Spain. I had a polar heart rate monitor, and one of the guys the same year, one of the guys who raced for Benesto got a heart rate monitor, and I had to turn it on and set it up for
Oh
him
no, I love it.
because it was the first time he ever used a heart rate monitor.
I race by sensations, Joe.
I,
I race by feeling and
fast,
sensation.
fast. But
I go by the feeling.
they weren't using any of that stuff.
That's my Spanish.
It was all feeling, man, and
Yeah.
they had the feeling.
Good sensations.
They were fast.
I had good sensations on the bike.
That's all they needed to know.
Yeah. Well, when you
You know,
draw people, you're doing pretty well.
it's fast.
But so that was my experience. But it's kind of funny because in a way, I was kind of like you because when I got into racing, again, I've had these like restarts, whatever you want to call them. Like I've probably had like 2 or 3 quote unquote big ones in my life where I was totally away from the bike, got a little fat, just didn't do much physically besides sit at an office, in an office chair and work
Mm-hmm.
like most people. Um, but in one of these restarts, it was in New York, and I got a coach, and got super light, super lean, a little bit fast, not fast, but I was like hitting the park races and
Mm-hmm.
doing tour of the Bat and Kill and just super cool races, just as like a Cat 4 and then a Cat 3 and
That was in the late aughts, right? That was like
yeah.
2007, 2008.
2000
Nine?
actually no 2010 and 11 and
10, 11.
12.
10, 11.
Yeah, I think 2011 was the year I probably did some cool fun stuff, but never high level category, but for me it was
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
But my point was when I called up this guy is like, oh, you can get this coach, his name is Matt Koshara,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually coached Phil Guyman
Mm-hmm.
and he coached Evelyn Stevens. So he's coached like really big pros,
Mm-hmm.
Olympians. But he also did like dudes like me.
Charity cases.
Yeah, charity cases.
Uh-huh.
Hey, schmucks like me. And but super cool guy. Now
Uh-huh.
lives in Costa Rica. He was in New York for a long time. He raced with Navigators.
Really?
He won what was the big triple crown races on the East Coast?
Matt
Remember those?
Koshara, he raced with Navigators?
He won the Jersey race or whatever New Jersey race was part of that triple. And he, who he beat and who was on the podium with him? George Hinkepi.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I knew some of those guys. Wasco was a navigator.
Yes. I mean, I think a lot of
Yeah,
it was kind of like,
a
yeah,
lot
there
of
were a
people
lot of.
made it through navigators.
So my point though is, I was just getting back into the sport. When I left the sport, I was racing, I think, aluminum
Mm-hmm.
back in Nice. So then I'm like now in New York, and I get like a carbon fiber bike. I get the carbon wheels, totally dorking out. The only thing though was like the power meter, and honestly, it was a little bit like it was kind of embarrassing, and maybe it's still a little bit like I kind of didn't know much about them, and I just for some reason didn't bother to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked Matt, I'm like, "Is it cool if I don't use a power meter?" And he was like, "Huh." And he was actually super cool with it. He's like, "That's fine." He's like, "No problem. I have a couple folks, and most of my people use power meters, and obviously it's just now you don't even think about it. Everyone kind of does it. But still, at that time, I was just like, I'd rather probably not."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "That's fine." So he would do everything else, rate of perceived exertion. So on we do a workout, it'd be like on a scale of 1 to 10, how hard was that? Which I know feels really quaint and like old school,
Now,
and
yeah,
not
especially
and
now.
not so
Yeah,
precise.
yeah, yeah.
As in not at all precise,
Uh-huh.
but super subjective to say the
Yeah,
least. But
yeah.
in a way, there was a lot of um, method to that madness, and use heart rate.
Sure.
Um, and I had a little cat eye computer, and it had the heart rate zone, so I would use the heart rate zone. So there was some structure and
Mm-hmm.
some objective data and empirical, what have you, but clearly not anything like a power meter. But I ended up doing 3 seasons without a power meter,
Mm-hmm.
and won a little bit, got some nice results, as you do as a an eager cat 3. Um, nothing big, obviously, but point being is I kind of got away without using a power meter. And I think part of it was I was reading a lot of Bike Snob
Mm-hmm.
at the time. He's a big New York dude, and
Yeah.
I was in New York and kind of got to know him a little bit. Um, but he's always been infamously like, I don't know what his position is. I can't put words in his mouth, but he clearly like parodies and satirizes like the obsession with like power meters. And
Yeah, yeah,
he's just like, go out and ride your damn bike.
yeah,
What's the expression some people use? Like, race what you brung.
yeah.
You ever hear that? Just that kind of idea. And so I was like, yeah, I don't need a power meter. Like, he had a funny little GIF. It was like, it was a power meter, but instead of showing your numbers, it would say you suck.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
like flash. But anyway, I just got away with it. I felt like at that time, looking back, like it was kind of easier to do. Like maybe in the Cat 3 field, like half the guys would have a power meter, but
Mm-hmm.
half didn't. Half
Yeah.
didn't even have a computer on their bike.
Yeah.
I had a basic computer, like whatever the Avo set like of modern times was, like
Yeah.
a basic cat eye, like $130 cat eye or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, then I came back again to the sport to race cross in Chicago. I was like, all right, this is different. I'm going to do a power meter. So I actually sat down, read up as much as I could, got a book on power meters. So I'm not an expert on it by any means, but
The basic
now I know
gist of it.
I know what I need to know. The main thing is it makes sense to me. I understand it, and I can explain it to like a 10-year-old. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know what 1,000 watts means now. I know what 200 watts means. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not just the number. Of course, it's like, what does it mean in context?
Mm-hmm.
Doing 1,000 watts at the end of a 3-hour ride is a lot different than doing it after an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And holding 300 watts for 20 minutes, which is like my FTP, my functional threshold power. That's kind of like, in theory, that's what you can hold for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, kind of the golden indicator.
Your FTP is 300.
My FTP was, it was literally 290, 295, this is not an impressive number, by the way.
No, but for
people
you know what, for
an
an
old
average
schmuck.
guy or a cat 3, I mean 295 is pretty.
I
would
was
consider that
basically
decent.
Yeah,
you know?
it was decent. I never had like I never had really any great results in cross, but
Mhm.
it was all about improvement.
Mm-hmm.
I know it sounds a little bit corny, but like, if I was like 35th out of 40, like my goal was to be like top 30
Mm-hmm.
the next 2, 3 races. And then it was like next top 25. But when you get better, it's like more fun because then you're a little closer, a little bit
Yeah.
closer, a little bit closer, a little bit closer to that front group or that second group, and then you're getting faster. That's kind of fun too. You're like, oh, I dropped a couple pounds. I'm a
Yeah.
little bit faster.
Yeah.
My power is like 10, 20 points up. Again, it's all fun on the weekends.
You know what? It's
So
interesting.
I wasn't taking it too seriously.
It's interesting data, and
It
not having
is.
had any of that stuff
Yes.
when I was younger and then playing
Nothing.
with it now,
Yes.
just having heart rate back in
Yep.
the day. It was just like heart rate. It's
Yep.
like, oh, my heart rate is high. My
Yeah.
heart rate is low.
It was
No,
like 185.
it was like, oh my God, my heart rate is high. Or, trying
Yeah.
to keep it at a certain heart rate.
Yes.
And so having played with it, it's like, wow, this is this is a piece that was really missing, like obviously missing from your training back in the day.
100%.
And if you're a pro these days, or you're trying to be, any kind of
yeah,
high
it's
level
just-
competition, you need, to say you can do it without it, you can, but it's like riding blind.
Yeah, and
I mean,
think in reality,
it's not efficient.
I don't
guess.
think there's anyone in the top 10 in the tour who doesn't have a power meter.
Oh, there's nobody.
Every single
There's
pedal stroke of their life.
Yeah, there's nobody.
Like even just out on a chill training ride.
I bet that there are.
Because all their coaches get to download the files.
Yeah.
And they analyze it, and it's a thing.
I mean, I would guess that there's probably a handful of those kids that are just so good that they probably just they don't take it on a Friday. They
Yeah,
just go out and ride.
It'd be
You know what I
interesting.
mean?
I know some pros talk about it. Some don't even like to talk about it. I know some are just like they have like power fatigue. Like they just want to ride.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I know one of my favorite riders is Vincenzo Nibali. Like he has a power meter, of course, and they all do. But he's and I know he's a little bit older, but he's always he seems to be one of the more vocal, like power meter. It's like everyone's just like staring at their freaking power meter, and
Yeah.
they don't want to go over on a climb in the tour because like they're looking at their number and they know if they do 550 instead of 540,
Yeah.
they're going to be in the red, and
Yeah.
then it just becomes like their governor, right? Their self-imposed governor.
Well, that's why the racing looks the way that it does. It's very
know.
robotic because
And then
everyone's just hitting. Everyone's watching
So
that
the
number.
last 200 meters,
Yep.
and then they do some sprinting, and watching climbers sprint is obviously pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean,
But-
I mean that's the look of today's cycling versus the look of our passionate cycling of back in the
Yes.
day. That's why it looks the way that it does. That's why it was much more fun to watch
And
cycling.
yes,
back
more
in the day.
dramatic, more fun,
Yeah, because-
more spontaneous.
Yeah, dumb.
Yes,
Because it
yeah.
was just like guys blowing themselves up. That and no race radios.
Like,
So the-
what was the one great breakaway I remember watching live? What was his name? The French guy who rode in the Castrama kit. Remember which were like the overalls?
Yeah, yeah.
Pignon was on that team. It was
Yeah.
Thierry Marie.
Yeah.
And he did, I thought it was like an early stage in the tour one year, but he broke away like almost at the start. And I think he rode solo. I think if it's not the longest solo breakaway on a road stage,
One of the longest.
it would have to be a road stage, obviously. If it's not the longest, it's one of the longest. But I think it was like, I don't know, it's 100+ miles or something. But
Yeah.
the pictures from that, like the last 30 miles, 20 miles, 10 miles, like you just see his face. Like it's like it's the Grim Reaper. He's just dead.
Yeah.
His face. You gotta see the photos if you don't know who I'm talking about. Thierry Marie. And his eyes are just so bloodshot. But I'll never forget that. And when would you get that now?
You don't.
I mean, I can't even imagine that. I know Jackie Durand, didn't he win the Tour of Flanders one year by breaking away? And he went solo, and they just misjudged it, and they couldn't catch him. And that I don't want to, I know people use the word fluky. I'm not sure if that was fluky or not, but these things don't really happen so much anymore.
They don't happen.
And I think
it's very rare for them to
I'm not going to blame power meters because it's how you use them, but I think there's definitely like a sense of
I don't
People aren't just going to do that now.
it's not the I mean it's not the fault of the power meter, I guess, but it's it's all it's a little bit of all of it,
Yeah.
I mean it's
Well, the
the reliance
radios.
on it, the race radios, because that's a big thing that people don't get right now about the race radios, and is that back in the day when you didn't have the race radio, mm, sometimes you'd have a guy who's really strong
Mm-hmm.
but a little dumb, a little dumb. And you can get that guy to just pull all day long. You could just,
Well,
or the
that's what
guys with a little bit of an ego, they're really strong, and they just like, you're not going to get ahead of me.
that's what
I'm gonna
Lance.
pull.
That was Lance.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he has not said it himself
Uh huh.
about himself, others have said it about him.
Yeah.
He was in some ways, at least early on, like that, especially
Yeah.
because he was a pro triathlete at like
Yeah. Yeah.
15 or something crazy. And then he started doing some road racing. Someone's like, you should race in bike races. And he's like, so that's what, people were just behind him.
Yeah.
And he would just ride at the front and do these pulls or pull the whole way.
Yeah.
And at the very end, people would just nip him at the line because they just had a little bit
Yeah. Much
for
less
that
a
kick.
much lesser rider.
Yeah, and he'd be
win you
so
this.
frustrated. He's
Yeah.
like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I mean, that was common. A guy like that.
we all know that
We
guy.
all know that guy. And
And
the
if you
group,
don't, you are that
yeah,
guy.
in the group ride, who's that guy?
Yeah.
Who's the guy who's like, oh, I can,
Yeah.
I can get that
Strong
guy.
like bull.
I'm gonna get him to pull. You wait and see, and I'm just gonna leave him there all day long, and I mean that used to happen in bike racing all the time.
Oh my god.
I mean that was commonplace.
Yeah.
It wasn't always the strong. I mean these days the strongest guy almost always wins, but back in the day the strongest guy was always getting blown out.
Clever
It was
racecraft.
yeah, it's what they used to say, right? He's a cunning
Yeah,
racer.
cunning.
You'd hear all that stuff, and yes, I mean, you
I
could
just
win.
hear Phil Liggett's voice when you say that.
You could win with your brain. You could be the smartest guy and win. And these days, sometimes the smartest guy doesn't
I
always
agree.
win.
It happens in some fashion sometimes,
Mhm.
but generally it's kind of like the strongest, fastest guy, the
Yeah.
best climber. I mean, definitely there are tactics and
Sure.
there's strategy and sure there's some of that and there's some racecraft for sure, especially in the classics
hmm
where it's just all or nothing on that day, obviously. But yeah,
there's less opportunity for for that smart.
at least it feels like it.
Yeah. I mean, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't. When you get a radio and you got somebody back there just telling you wait,
Oh, right.
don't go.
Yeah, like
Wait,
literally, or you're
stop.
fired. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Wait for the rider. Give him your wheel. Go
Mhm.
ahead.
yeah, don't go, don't pull.
I mean,
don't pull.
Not that we're going to go into it, but there's this ongoing forever kind of debate. Like,
hmm
should we have radios or not have radios? And I've heard both. I've heard good arguments on both sides.
Yeah, for safety
My
reasons. I
heart,
get it,
yeah,
for
safety is
reasons.
usually the name,
Yeah.
which is obviously paramount. But yeah, I mean, kind of like my romantic heart is kind of like, oh, I wish there were no radios.
Yeah, get rid of all that stuff and put everybody back on steel bikes.
But it's really weird. Like, I've been very lucky to be in a car in the tour.
hmm
I was never in car number one. I was always in car number two. But even in car number two, you see a lot of action as well. But
yeah.
it gave me like a real sense of like what radios are, like
Oh, it's insane.
how they function.
Yeah, I've done Vuelta.
I think a lot, yeah,
I've
I
done
think a
Vuelta
lot of
España. Mhm.
people don't know that experience. Like they don't know what that's really like because they're
Oh.
kind of maybe seeing the last 45 minutes of a tour stage on NBC, and they maybe have some notions about like
Oh, there's
whether there should be radios or not. But it's like, do you know for the first 4 hours of a 6-hour road stage,
yeah.
like how much is going on?
yeah
Mechanicals, bathroom breaks,
jackets,
punctures, jackets,
food out the
my
window.
saddle's a
Uh-huh.
millimeter off,
Mhm.
like, and it's all radios.
Yeah.
I'm coming up, fall back. This guy needs this. Team one or car one has to drop back. Car two, go
Mhm.
forward. I mean, if you didn't have radios, I mean, not trying to exaggerate too much, but I literally can't imagine not having radios. I don't know how it would practically function, like operate. And I say that as someone who, my romantic self is like,
Well,
I love when the riders are just racing like,
I
mano a mano, and it's like, I win today. No power meter, no radio. But I know that's
I mean
unrealistic.
all the amateur races in 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 Europe, there was a team car. We
Right.
had team cars in the junior races and the um
Can I just
you
say
know,
that's baller? That's cool.
oh yeah, there were always team car. You had a team car. There was a team car, and so like
Cat 3 with the team car.
yeah, I spent a lot of time in. Well, there was there were no Cat threes,
Yeah.
so it was one and two, and all that changed in the senior level, what we would call seniors here, Cat one and two.
Yeah. In
Um,
France, they had professional, elite, and national, I believe.
mhm.
National was like anyone who wasn't elite. So you could literally be like a Cat 5, 4, 3, 2.
Here, you would have been like if you were an American four, you would go to Spain. Depending on your age, you'd be a one or a two, and the only thing that differentiated you was your age. And then after a certain age, you were a one. Good luck.
I just imagine like some pale skinned person like myself riding
Uh-huh.
along the lakefront, 20 miles a ride,
Uh-huh.
like
Well,
Cat 5, and then you go to Spain.
yeah. Well, I mean, either you hung or you didn't, and so it was just kind
You
of
didn't.
yeah. I mean, it wasn't.
Especially if the road went up.
Yeah, it wasn't a sport for. It wasn't a participatory. It wasn't like something you went and just did.
Right.
Either you were a racer,
Yeah.
which meant you were training and you were there to race bicycles,
Right.
or you didn't. It
Yeah.
wasn't like I'm going to go do a race.
Yeah.
And and
You're not on a hybrid like
yeah, no, I mean you raced.
got
And
your.
if you didn't, then you weren't on a team. I mean, it's just kind of the way it
I
was.
kind
It
of I
was,
kind of love that.
it was all serious. It was serious.
Yeah, I
It
kind
was
of love it because you're like little pros.
yeah, yeah, you were because I mean you had to.
I mean, team car. Poof.
Oh yeah, you had a team car. You had the team. Oh, the team
I
car.
mean, I just remember racing like races like Bat and Kill and
Uh-huh.
stuff. I don't know if you know Bat and Kill well, but
Yeah.
I mean, you had to bring your own inner tube and like CO2s, and there's no there's no there were I think technically there were support cars
Uh-huh.
like neutral support like kind of stuff, but I just remember seeing people all over the roads like flat tires. There was no like team car.
Oh no, over
And
there.
I'm looking back, I'm like, that would have been so romantic.
Oh, it was great, Danny. I mean, it
You
was.
feel
it
so
was
pro, and you're just like a
team
middling
car.
Cat 3 or something.
Team car was the best.
I love it.
Team
But
car was the best. And I got to drive the team car for some
Ooh.
junior races.
They
It-
trusted you. That's pretty cool.
sometimes I was the only one available.
You got to do it.
It's like, hey, can you follow the junior team at that race? And we had actually, I didn't know how to drive stick, but we had a car that was automatic,
Ooh. See, that sounds really exotic.
that was automatic in
Oh, yeah.
Europe was very, especially back then,
Yep.
that was very exotic.
Oh, yeah.
So
I remember going to rent cars with people in Ireland, and um, the shock on their faces when they realized there are no automatics.
Yeah.
I think it's changed a bit, but back in the day, I remember some of that. I learned to drive on a stick in a pickup truck, so
Uh-huh.
I've always been comfortable with. I like stick actually, but that's pretty funny. But bringing it all the way back to power meters, like I definitely like having a power meter. I like having the data,
Uh-huh.
especially if I'm trying to be competitive. Like if I'm trying to like get into some decent race shape and
Yeah.
do like a dozen cross races and just have a bunch of fun in the fall.
Yeah, I think if you are, if you only have so much time
That's
to do
the
it,
thing. You gotta
if you have
maximize it.
if you have to maximize your
Yep,
time,
the time crunch cyclist.
yes, I think that a power meter is really handy. I mean, now there's more affordable versions of power meters.
Now they're super affordable,
Yeah, the pedals, the Garmin pedals.
much easier.
Hmm.
So I actually have a pair of those. I haven't used them yet, but
You have the Garmin?
the Vector 3s, but I
Yeah.
haven't used them yet. They're in a box.
Really?
Yeah.
You just bought yourself a set or what?
Yeah, I got a set through a friend. He upgraded because
Hmm.
now they have the Rally.
Yep.
They renamed them. It's kind of a similar version.
Yep.
But it was one of those things where like I'd given him some stuff in the past.
Oh, nice,
and-
nice.
but I haven't used them yet.
I have that's what I use the rallies.
Oh.
So I have
Oh,
those.
okay.
I just
Do you like them?
Yeah, they've been. I mean, they served me well. They
Okay.
give me a number.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't really have anything to compare them too,
So
but
do you
they're
you
convenient because I can swap them, on
yes, that's
bikes.
the beauty of the pedal ones. So
Yeah.
I've never used any pedal
Uh
based
huh.
power meter. So I'm kind of excited. Um, Ideally, I'd like to throw them on the road bike and then on the cross bike.
Uh huh.
But my bigger point was like I don't nerd out on it too much. You can go like crazy with the power and like slice and dice it like nuts. But I do just like it for what it is. Like this, I like a nice simple analysis. Like
Uh huh.
if I'm going to do a warm up, I don't need the power number so much. But once I do some intervals and you're doing the zones, I mean, the heart rate can be quite misleading if you're a little bit not fresh, if you're a little bit tired, or you're a little fatigued, or you maybe have a little cold coming on or something. But the watts don't really lie. Um, Obviously, you can have other factors like wind and uphills and road and whatever. But for intervals, I found it to be that's where I liked it the most. I never really cared like being like a city rider. Like the overall power was quite meaningless. And
Mm-hmm.
but for the intervals specifically, like my coach would be like, do 3 20-minute intervals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do it in this zone, like from 250 watts to 270 or whatever it was. I can't remember the zones offhand, but it was very handy because like you're just like fixing that zone,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can repeat that obviously over time.
And
And
compare and compare.
yeah, and
Yeah.
hopefully, and then you can see your average speed went up a half a
Yeah.
mile an hour, or your heart rate was a little bit lower during that, or what have you. You can, like I said, you can go nuts, but I had a really good coach, and he just explained it in a really nice, like simple way, and that made all the difference. So now the numbers actually have a lot of meaning to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I hit 1,000 watts in a sprint, and I've done it, I'm not like a sprinter, I'm not a monster, but if I hit 1,000, that's like really good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of times it'd be like 800, 900, like in a sprint training, especially for like cross. You try to work on your starts, clipping in and sprinting to the whole shot kind of thing.
Gee, Danny, you're so dedicated.
But like if I hit 1,000, like that was meaningful. Like it was just for fun. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
no one
Yeah.
in the world cares, including me. But at the same time, it was like, oh, I hit, the 1,000 number is like kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be like, oh, cool, I hit it. Whereas if I was only hitting like 700 or something, like, oh, what's going on here? Like, is my tire pressure off? Or
Mm.
anyway, so that was when the numbers are meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
But sometimes, yeah, and then you do have the douchebaggery effect too. Sometimes people boast about their numbers and their watts, and that's kind of like the side of it I don't think is very cool.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
It's like a little braggadocious, and hopefully we're kind of over that because I feel like when power meters came out, like really became
mm-hmm.
popular and more affordable, like yeah, it was like people talking about their numbers and screenshots.
Yeah, there
They
was a
share
lot.
them on Instagram, and
And that's
it's
why I
like,
wanted. That's why I kind of avoided it
yeah,
all at that time because I was like, I don't really need to associate myself with this kind of stuff.
yeah, it just
You know,
became like a
if
status symbol
yeah,
almost.
I mean, I get the guys. I would be interested to know what they're doing,
Yep.
what kind of wattage they're doing up Alpe d'Huez.
Oh,
Those
for
guys.
sure. Yeah. Well, it's because it's interesting information.
Yeah, I mean that is interesting to me.
Hmm.
Knowing what the guy down the street does, I don't really care.
Joe, you
You
don't care about my FTP? Damn.
No, Danny.
Not
Unless
really.
it makes you a little bit better riding,
Yeah.
we can hang a little bit. That's good.
The hilarious thing though was, sometimes I would catch myself getting a little bit too excited about it and like
Mm-hmm.
too into it, taking it a little bit too seriously. I've definitely been guilty. Maybe we all have, but the great kind of laugh I would have is when I would show up and do like a cross race like on Saturday or Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
and pain cave
Mm-hmm.
first 2 minutes, boom, you're in the pain cave, and that burn and that suffering, and you're like, okay, I got 40 minutes, 45 minutes of this,
Yeah.
and the numbers don't mean shit.
Yeah. No, you can.
It's
Yeah, you can do it without it.
you're just riding. I
Yeah.
mean, they
Yeah.
do. I'm kind of joking, but like
Yeah.
it's just you and the bike.
Yeah. At that point.
I'm not really riding around too many guys. I'm not in a group.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not fighting for corners and argy bargy
Yeah. Yeah.
elbows out. Like I'm just doing like a solo time trial,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get around the course as smoothly as I can,
Yeah.
to be as fast as I can. The numbers do kind of make sense because, for example, if like I would go out too hot, the first lap because you have all this adrenaline. It's really easy to go out too hot. That's a big problem for a lot of riders, myself included. Then rest of the race, I can't really come back
Mm-hmm.
because you go two into the red, you kind of can't come back depending on your, what parents you picked. For me, I wasn't, I didn't have that talent where I could just come back. I can go into the red and come back, go into the red and come back. No, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
no. Especially as you get older, I think it's harder too.
Yeah. Well,
But
it's even actually when you get, I think what I'm feeling like now is that once you get older, you trying not to get into the red.
like,
You well, I think
don't go near the red.
well, I think I'm smart enough for sure. Like I'm smart enough now to know I can see the red. And I'm like I'm not going there.
Yeah,
Because I just want to hold it here
yeah, yeah, yeah.
for the next 3 hours.
So that's where it was actually
It's-
very meaningful. Again, my coach,
Yeah.
very smart guy, and he races. He's super good and
Yeah.
coached a lot of folks, and he's very fluent in all this stuff. And he'd be like, just try not to go over this number.
Yeah.
Like try to not go over this number, like 220 or whatever it was.
Mhm.
And it wasn't always, because the nature of cross is so crazy. Like, but in general, it was really good advice, and it helped me. So I didn't go because sometimes your rate of perceived exertion can lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like it's really hard, but you can actually go harder.
Mm-hmm.
So in that way, the numbers were meaningful, and so I would actually be able to do a better race instead of like blowing up on like lap one.
Yeah. My big concern these days with all of that stuff and so getting back into riding a little more seriously in the last year or so,
Mhm.
where I actually care about some of this stuff. And
Yeah, I saw your setup downstairs. You got a nice Zwift setup.
yeah, I do. I'm doing Zwift and I got a nice trainer and all hooked up and stuff. The last year's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
So,
and you're looking good, dude. You're looking. I saw you. I hadn't seen you in a while. I'm like, Joe,
yeah,
you dropped
man.
a few pounds and
Yeah,
looking kind of lean.
Trying to, man, just trying to get in shape. Yeah, I managed to lose a bunch of weight.
Yeah, I was like, oh, this is the old Joe. He's
yeah.
gonna drop me now.
I lost a lot of weight, but I think I lost some muscle, and I
happens.
dropped a lot of weight really fast.
It happens, yeah.
So one thing I definitely noticed over the last year is that I didn't have a lot of pop.
Yeah,
I mean, I could ride, but looking at that's where the power meter comes into play. I mean,
Yes.
The watts I'm putting out are very low.
yeah,
I can ride for a while. I'm lighter.
Sure.
I feel I'm certainly
yeah.
in better shape physically, but riding wise, I don't have I think I lost some muscle along the way, or
Sure.
I just it's going to take a little time to build that muscle back.
Yeah.
And then it comes
And
back.
you can. It's just
It's just going to come back slower.
Yeah.
You're older, and so just kind of figuring out what kind of rider are you at this point in your life?
Yes.
And just trying to figure that part out.
that has been a great insight for me. Something I have to admit I wasn't very aware of for a long time, like a long time.
Yeah.
Because anytime I picked up the bike again, I was like, I want to be hardcore.
Well, you want to be 25.
I want to be.
again
I
on
want
the
to be
bike.
my 25-year-old
Yeah.
self
And
again. I
it's-
want to live like a monk.
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna have 2 meals a day. It's
Yeah.
gonna be salmon.
Uh-huh.
It's gonna be an avocado. It's gonna be a little green salad. I'm gonna have water, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna do yoga and Pilates, and I'm gonna do my riding workouts, and I'm gonna do extra long rides.
You're leaving your girlfriend too?
And no, like and so I was like that a lot. But what you said just now makes a lot of sense to me because now I look like I want to in the new year now, like not to have a cheesy resolution, but basically I'm having one. So I want to get back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Need to drop some weight. Need to get fit again. But I'm kind of looking at it. I think I'm hopeful. Like I'm looking at it more like I'm not. I may start racing again, like cross in the fall. We'll see what's going on with COVID.
Oh, don't do that, Danny.
I love cross.
Really? You're gonna race cross?
Oh, I love it.
Let's just go do some epic rides.
No, that's what I was gonna say. I would like to do some racing, but if it does happen, it's for fun.
Okay.
It's just to go out and have a blast. I love the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Just for fun.
It's fun. It's a crazy workout.
You'll dress up as Wonder Woman.
Oh, 100%.
Your usual.
How did you
outfit.
know? Have you been in my closet?
Yeah. I've seen you in some pictures.
Scary. But my simple point that I was trying to make is that resonated with me what you were saying because I want to enjoy it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's also just like enjoying the whole process
Yeah.
and liking the riding again. Just going out. I don't need to be worried. I love to put my power meter to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I do that a lot. Actually, Taylor Finney has talked a lot about this since he retired, um, and he's made some comments and interviews and on social and stuff. I just made a lot of sense to me. So just this idea of like putting your power meter to sleep, not worrying about your watts. It's kind of like embarrassing when you're like 50 riding along and you're just like obsessed with your watts. It's like, I don't know, unless you're really like a competitive racer. So it's just about going out and riding, having fun, having a bike that's kind of comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't have to be this rigid, crazy machine that's super aggressive. Have a couple bags. I might have a handlebar bag, which I
Yeah,
got.
those burrito bags, like
I
the
love
burrito
those.
style
I
bag.
got one. I
Yeah.
forgot the brand, but I love it. I bought it. Super nice quality. Fits perfect. I love the look.
It's very Euro.
Yeah, exactly. And
Mhm.
just kind of just don't always have to wear full kit. Maybe like a t-shirt on some days.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just going out and really just getting back into riding again and just
Man,
enjoying the riding. And hey, maybe I'll.
get a cowboy hat like American Flyers, right?
Oh God, that
What's a wheel sucker?
that movie is
Yeah.
so good. And just maybe have a big peanut butter cookie at the coffee shop and
Yeah, I'm. You
just
know
kick
what?
back,
I'm down for some of that. Like
just have fun.
yeah, it's been nice to kind of rediscover the bike.
Yes.
Just to kind of, and I think that's part of what's led to this podcast.
Yes.
All of it. I think also just being fed up with the last couple of years
Mm-hmm.
in the bike shop. Before, well, I think the bike shop gave me, enough bike stuff where I didn't need to do any of this stuff. But
Yes.
the last 2 years, the way that we've had to do business, just very limited to what we can do because of what's available. We've been overrun with business. Just repair
Yeah.
business, no bikes to sell, the whole supply chain
Hamstrung.
crap that's going on.
Well,
And
kudos to you guys for surviving and thriving.
yeah, it's been good, man. I mean,
I mean, I want to, little shout out. Like
it's
you gotta like acknowledge that. Like you guys, a lot of places are not around anymore, and
I'm
you
really
guys are.
I'm
So
my old bosses, the old guys,
yep.
pushing 70, maybe a little over 70. Um, those guys have worked harder than they have in 20 years, 25
Right,
years.
which is crazy.
My old boss, Mark at Cycle Smithy, he was in the shop
Yeah,
every day,
yeah.
ordering stuff,
Had to be.
calling it, had to be,
Had to be.
because it was all hands on deck. But they were loving it because it was like the old days. They were
The
making
rush. The rush.
oh,
was
the
back.
rush. They were making money.
Yeah.
They were calling their shots. They were,
Fun, the
they were like
vibe, the rush.
selling stuff at full stroke. Old stuff.
I
old
loved working
stock.
at Cycle Smithy.
Oh, it was great.
I'd love it. We'd have fun and then like crack a beer and order pizza at the
Oh, yeah.
end of the shift. Like
Yeah,
blast the radio.
Sometimes in the middle of the
Yeah,
shift.
yeah. And like I remember people come in and be like, "Oh, that pizza smells really good."
Yeah.
We're like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
People would be like, "Man, this job's awesome."
It was awesome. It was awesome.
All comes back to the bike shop.
man, dude.
We had fun, and you were the soul of that shop. Like you made it really fun and cool and laid back, and it wasn't douchey and didn't have the tude that you get in so many shops. And it was fun working there, man. And
I've always thought the bike shop should be fun. I mean, I've worked in,
but unfortunately, I don't know. I can't say I've been in one recently, but
Mhm.
I think we've all been to shops that have a lot of tude.
Oh, a
And
lot,
there's
a lot of
just-
them do. A
There's
lot
the
of them.
douche factor, and
Yeah.
it's like, really, what do you need? I mean, if you're getting it from the customer, I understand it, but
Mhm.
like, it should be a cool, fun place.
It should be. I mean, it should be a little bit more, a good one should be welcoming, and I think some of those, I think some shops certainly miss that,
Yeah.
I've certainly been into a handful of bike shops where I'm like, whoa, I'm like, I own a bike shop and
Yeah.
I'm getting at it. I'm like, I'm getting out of here.
Your
it's
shop
like,
seems so fun. It's almost like not a cabin, but it just has like a really cool vibe. I mean, it's very small physically,
it's a bit of a cave.
but something very just the way you've put like stuff on the walls, some of the old posters and some of the goofy little things like the Marilyn Monroe cardboard cutout. Like
Yeah,
it's just kind of fun. Like
people bring weird
yeah,
stuff to me. I mean, in that town, I don't know
but it's
why.
cool. Some places are almost going for that super sterile, like
Boutique.
yeah, and it's just
Yeah,
a little precious. And I'm kind of like, oh, really? You have a $60 T-shirt? Cool.
yeah.
Thanks. I don't think I'll be buying that.
I mean, you have to kind of know your clientele a little bit and also know where you're at.
I just
But
want to
it's
know who can afford like a some of the kit I see out there. I'm like, wow. Like,
$300 jersey or
I mean,
$300 bibs.
I've seen bibs for like $450.
Yeah, I know.
I'm like, that's really cool. Who the f is buying
Yeah,
$450 bib shorts?
somebody is right. I mean, somebody is somebody. Yeah, I mean, I priced out some kit. I threw a kit into a basket, and it was like almost. Yeah, it was almost six
I ain't
hundred
knocking the
bucks.
people who make it or buy it if you can do it, but I find it stunning to even think
Just don't
about.
fall.
Yeah. First, yeah, don't do a
Just
Cat
don't
4 crit
fall.
race.
I mean, whoa, man. Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff is a little pricey.
It's
Yeah,
nuts, but all comes back to the bike shop. Cycle
yeah,
Smithy was really cool. That was a good shop.
yeah.
Still is, of
Still is.
course.
It's a great shop. It's a great shop.
We worked there. We had so much fun. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, that place for me it means a lot.
Yeah. Well,
A
how
lot.
many years were you there?
Close to 15.
15 years. Like, did you have any breaks, or were you
Yeah,
solid
yeah.
15?
Yeah, I mean, I never was out 100%. I don't think, there were
Mm,
times when I was just there on weekends or a weekend day. Then there were times when I was full time, full
mm,
blast, So there were,
yeah.
it varies over that course of time.
Yeah.
There's sometimes where I was super, super intensely in there.
Yeah.
But I always maintained my contact there. And then before that, I was at Turin, um, in the city, and that place was. I like to say that was like my classical training
Hmm.
at Turin. That was the racer bike shop, all buttoned up, super pro.
Yeah.
Um, and then Cycle Smithy was rock and roll.
Yeah. Yes.
That's where I learned rock and roll. That's where I learned to improvise. That's where the quality of work was just as good,
Yep.
but you learn to do things.
The location was dope. I mean, you guys are right near the
Oh,
lake.
it's Lincoln Park in Chicago.
Lincoln Park.
So,
You had good food places for lunch and dinner
yep.
around.
Although the place I worked at, Turin had two stores in Chicago. They had one at the time. They had two stores. So they had one in Evanston,
Mm-hmm.
which was the racer pro
Yeah,
racer
that's the one I
bike shop.
remember. They had the ride there, Tuesday or Thursday ride from there.
Wednesday.
Wednesday ride. Okay.
Yeah. And so that was I mean, that was a big. That was a shop.
Yep.
And we lived on the south side, so you know how difficult it is to
Yes.
get from, let's say, Midway Airport
100%.
to Evanston.
Yeah.
That's a trek.
That's a track.
So, but
No
I
pun
wanted to race
intended.
bikes, so I went all the way up there. And
Yeah.
I remember doing their Wednesday night ride.
Yep.
I would ride from like my house around Midway
Oh, you
Airport
rode from Midway up there?
all the way
Oh.
to Evanston,
I
and
thought
then I
you had
would
your car and your bike rack.
no, and then I would do the ride, and then I would ride home.
Wow, that's an epic day.
That was nuts.
And you had to do that at night, basically.
That was
getting
nuts.
home.
And then there was a ride that would take place in at a place called the Wheel Thing in Lagrange.
I remember Wheel Thing.
They had a really good Wednesday night ride
Yep.
too. They had a very good. They were. That was a fast ride
Yeah.
on Wednesday nights. So that was also a good ride. But that turn ride, you'd have, you know, as close to a pro as you'd
Right.
have some of the touring guys,
Sure.
touring race guys show up for that ride.
Yep.
Because some of those guys lived in the northern suburbs.
Very
and
strong, very fast.
oh, it was a fast ride. You
Yeah.
had RRB as well. There was another kind of famous
Yeah.
Chicago bike shop, RRB, and
Were you kind of hanging out at the back, hanging out for dear life, or were you taking pulls or what?
at that time I would just hang out because I was junior. I was young. I was new to the sport. I was just happy to be there.
Yeah.
And just be accepted. And
Yeah.
I was.
More of a social thing almost.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the ways I've always been accepted. I just kind of come in,
Mm-hmm.
and observe,
Yep.
sp-
Listen.
speak when spoken
Yes.
to,
Yes.
and then I was invited. I
Yeah.
was invited in. I was. It served me well
It's a good
there.
metaphor for life and
Yeah, yeah, and I
other
mean
areas.
everywhere I went, and
Yeah.
it's always worked. Just to kind of, just pay attention, do as they do. When
The
in Rome,
maturation of Joe Joe G.
yeah, man. I was. It's worked well.
It
It's a
has.
tactic that's worked very well, whether it's here or anywhere in the world.
In some ways, I mean, bike teams, group rides, those kinds of things. I mean, they're kind of similar to other things in life, like working on a team, like in a company.
Hmm.
Um, it's about getting along.
Yeah,
It's about respecting others,
it's about
IDing, strengths, and communicating is huge. Egos, putting your ego in check.
not letting the guy in front of you blow snot on you. It's very important.
um, yeah, giving someone half of your Cliff Bar before they bonk.
Yeah, I yeah, yeah. I Cliff Bars. Ugh.
Giving someone your tube, your last tube, if they flat. I actually like
As long as I'm not very far from home.
I actually like Cliff Bars. I don't like eat them at all if I am not.
Oh, Cliff Bar. You know what I was thinking about? Power bars.
Ugh,
Remember those things? They were.
that was like toffee.
It pulled one of my fillings
Oh
out.
yeah. Oh I'm sure. I'm sure it's pulled a lot of fillings out. Those were so
They'd get rock
hardcore.
hard.
That reminded me of like I've never been in the military, but that reminded me of something you might get like.
Yeah.
I think
like a
actually the military
ration.
has had power bars.
Power bars. Remember power bars?
They were
man?
so hard to chew. They were
Yeah.
so hard.
Yeah. Well, if you worked at a really cool bike
Unless it
shop,
melted in
yeah,
your
they got
jersey,
warm.
then they
yeah.
got chewy, like
Yeah.
too chewy,
Yeah, you'd stick. I had a friend who'd stick them to his
liquidy.
stem when they
Oh,
got like
there
like
you
that
go.
hard. You just wrap it around.
That's a nice little hack.
Um, if you were really cool back in those days, if you worked at a cool bike
Mhm.
shop like Turin back in those days, you sold something called Finhalsa
What the
bars.
heck? I've never heard of those.
A Finhalsa.
Never heard.
It was a power. It was like a.
From like Sweden or something? Are they
I
from
don't know. I
Europe?
don't know if they were Finnish or. I mean, they had a European flair to them.
Maybe it was just some branding from some dude in like Omaha.
I know I've looked them up recently, Finhalsa, and I don't know. I think somebody had them. I think it was a European. I think it was a European
Are
product.
they good?
They were delicious.
Oh, okay.
Oh, and compared to like a power bar,
Oh, yeah.
it was like it came in a white wrapper.
I definitely ate my share of power bars, and at the time I probably thought they were great. But like anything else, at the time that was the thing, right?
Hmm.
And then after a while, I know they have a lot of better stuff these days, I think. But I've used my default has been Cliff Bars. I don't eat them off the bike, but for rides, obviously longer rides, like pretty good. I think the peanut butter is my favorite, but the brownie or double chocolate, whatever that one is,
Uh-huh.
that's one of my go-tos as well. But I don't, have them off the bike. Just too much. And yeah, I think
Well,
like
they're calorie dense, aren't
they're
they? I mean, it's
calorie
they'll-
dense.
they'll, like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're just snacking, using them as snacks, they're the
Wait, you're
worst.
saying I shouldn't?
It's ridiculous.
No, they are good for long rides. Those 3-4 hour rides,
Hmm.
you know.
So I find all that stuff super confusing now. So back in the day, the whole you take a banana,
Hmm.
you stop and you eat.
Or if you're Chris Horner, you get the Snickers and the Coke
Oh, that
at
was the
the
last
gas
hour.
station.
That was the last hour of the day, or that was on my way home for the last hour. A Snicker and a Coke, and it was like jet fuel, and it'd get you home.
Oh, just
But-
like jolt.
But get home before it
Go to
runs
the other
out.
side of the crash.
Oh, because it'll crash.
Yeah, you got to time it.
You had to time it, and so that was just for the last hour. Within the last hour, on the way home, Coke and a Snickers
That's
bar.
Horner's go-to.
Yep, that was my. I think guys our age,
Yeah,
that was kind of a go. Well, there wasn't really any other option. There was White Hen Pantry,
yeah,
Coke, and a Snickers.
yeah.
You know,
I would usually get. I didn't like Gatorade, but I would usually get Gatorade because I just felt like it was
Sporty.
the best thing to do
Mm-hmm.
for like hydration and get
Yeah.
some like. And then what else did I? You know what I love? Chico sticks.
Chico sticks.
You
Really?
remember those?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I don't know why I would always get those.
I remember Cytomax. Is
Yep,
Cytomax still around?
I believe. I'm not sure.
That was
That was like big for a
that
while.
became something I used to take
All the
to.
pros were sponsored.
Yeah, Cytomax was
Fellow
something
news
I started
pages.
taking with me to, I would fly around with a big thing of Cytomax.
Yeah, these days it's funny. I mean, I definitely believe you don't need really any of that stuff for short rides or even medium rides, and you can make so much stuff on your own now,
Yeah.
like those little rice cakes and different
Hmm.
things like that. I do like them for longer rides though,
I mean,
and I have an emergency one in my bag.
Danny, I'm doing something outrageous these days.
Oh,
Like now, I ride fasted. Whoa,
ooh,
whoa!
that's
I
pretty trippy.
I've been doing a lot of that stuff.
Really,
Yeah.
just to lose the weight.
Well, yeah. I mean, I started down this hole. This.
Intermittent fasting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've done that. Yeah.
Yeah, when I started writing and I started doing all that stuff, and I
Yep.
started looking into the different kind of training, the ways that
Yep.
people are training and training your
It's a
body
great way to lose weight.
training your body to learn to burn fat
Yep.
and blah blah blah, and so that the whole fasted training thing is going to come about, and so I was do I guess I do some of that,
Yeah.
and some of the fasted
Mhm.
rides, but then
Are you doing them indoor or outdoor or both?
I do both. Now all my riding, indoor and outdoor. So in the summer, I have a cold weather rule when I don't ride.
Okay, what's this?
I don't ride if my nipples are hard.
Oh,
I don't ride outdoors.
I was like, I was waiting for some big technical.
No, that's it. Well, that is about as technical as I get. My nipples get hard. I'm pretty much not riding
That's
outside.
it. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
if it's cold enough for my nipples to get
Old
hard,
school.
yeah, then I'm like, no, I'm riding inside. I've done enough riding in the cold,
Oh,
so I was like, nope.
oh God.
Um,
That's awesome.
but yeah, no, I'll ride indoors, and those
I
kind
was
of
gonna say
fasted
fasted riding. Yeah, I mean, obviously you're
riding.
probably doing shorter rides, like an hour.
Non-intensity, an hour
Yeah,
ride,
I was gonna.
not a lot of intensity.
Fasted's fine.
Yeah, fasted is fine,
The
and
only thing would be I used to ride with a guy sometimes in New York. He was pretty strong rider. I think he was like a Cat 3. Um, he was very lean and fit and strong rider and all that. And he had some very strong opinions about like carbs and like keto and
yeah,
fasting and just whatever. And a lot of it kind of made sense to me, but I never quite bought into one aspect, which was he was pretty much like you kind of don't need carbs for like endurance and competitive.
mm,
And I was like, I've heard this. I know some people believe that,
yeah,
and they make all these like great long arguments for it. And I kind of understand a little bit what they're talking about. But one time we went for a ride, and we rode from Brooklyn all the way up Manhattan, this is what the roadies do. A lot of people anyway. You ride over the Brooklyn Bridge, go up the West Side Bike Path all the way up to the George Washington, cross the George Washington into Jersey. Then you go up that leafy road. I forget which one that is called, but it's along the Hudson. Very leafy, very climby, very nice, very
uh-huh.
hilly. And then it leads you onto 9W, which is the main road you take all the way up to Nyack, which is the big turnaround for a lot of folks. Anyway, so that's a very popular ride. We did that ride, and it was just one of those kind of Saturdays, or I think it was a Saturday, and it was just one of those things where, the sunset, like it kind of caught us a little bit off guard. We're trying to time the ride so we were back like before sunset. So it was getting like a little bit dark, and it was also one of those kind of funny days where you couldn't really predict it, but it got like a tad chilly,
Mm-hmm.
and it got like a tad windy. Nothing crazy, but it was just enough. You know what I mean? Like it was probably like 5 to 10 degrees cooler and chillier than we kind of planned. Um, and we had a long ride, and we went pretty hard.
Mm.
So it was probably like a 60, 70-mile ride, and we took a couple little loops on the side,
It's getting
diversions.
chilly. You said it's getting chilly.
Yeah, and
Oh,
it was
that's
getting
the
a little chilly.
worst. Yeah.
And, this is probably 4+ hours into the ride.
Yeah.
Again, a hard ride. We weren't moseying along. We were like doing 2-guy pace line.
Yeah.
Point is, we're back over the George W., and he starts to bonk. And we still have it's still a good 45 minutes or so, whatever, back to home.
Yeah.
And he starts to bonk. And he had made this kind of big point that he was just going to have a banana for the whole ride, one banana. And he had water. I think maybe he had 2 water bottles. He might have just had 1 water bottle.
Uh-huh.
And on there, I got like the Cliff bars or whatever bars I was
Yeah.
eating at the time. And I had like some mix in like my 1 bottle. And then
Yeah.
I had like an oversized bottle for water. And, and he was cool about it. But, he didn't make any comments about what I had. But he was kind of making a point like, yeah, my goal is just to do half a banana on this ride.
Uh-huh.
So he starts to bonk. And so he wolfs down the rest of the banana, tosses the peel. And then he's like, do you know if there's anywhere around here to get a Coke? And, we're on the path. Like, there's nothing really around. And it was getting a little bit later. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think we'd have to get off and go, like, into the city a little bit. And I gave him one of my bars, of course. And we got back. We did stop at, like, a little hot dog vendor, and we got a Coke.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah,
he was okay. But we ended up going from, like, 20 miles an hour to, like, 12.
Oh, you guys were nice.
Yeah,
Away for a
but my point being is that's only, this idea of like I can do stuff on just like water and like
Yeah.
a banana.
Yeah.
For endurance competitive stuff, whether it's running, swimming, cycling, I don't
No,
know.
from what I've read and from what
Doesn't really
most
work.
Yeah, most of the stuff that I've seen, it's almost impossible to be an endurance athlete
And
without
even like
carbs.
Peter Attia, this guy, I've been kind of checking some of his stuff out over the past couple.
He's a
years.
big intermittent fasting guy.
Yes.
So I mean, he works with the Zero app.
But
and all
he
that
even
stuff.
talks
Yeah.
about he even talks about
Yep.
you need
Yeah.
some carbs, like good
Yep.
carbs. But I'll never forget that. Like some moments like that are like great teachable moments. I didn't necessarily need the teaching because I was all fine with having some good carbs because I felt like I always rode better, especially longer rides.
He's a cyclist, right, Peter Attila? Right?
He is.
He
He's-
talked about racing.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
know
I've
if
heard him talk
I don't know
about
if he's
racing
doing
bikes.
a ton right now, but he's done a lot. And from what I can tell, he's probably pretty strong based on what I can tell. I think he's just doing it. I don't know if he's ever competed.
All the cool guys, Danny. All the cool guys ride bikes, man.
Yeah.
Peter Attila, Rich Roll.
Yeah. Well,
We're in good company.
well, what Peter Attia is known for is he, and you could look it up, but he swam between 2 of the big islands in Hawaii,
Uh-huh.
and he was the first person to ever do that.
Wow.
So he's like an insane swimmer, like
Really?
super top level swimmer.
Hmm.
And he just went out and set this record.
I see now we got to go do
First
something
time to do it.
crazy like
Yeah.
that. Let's
But
go
yeah,
there.
but the bigger point is like, I understand some people get really into these. It almost becomes like a religion. Like,
Yeah,
they get
it's-
so passionate about it, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that. But
Uh-huh.
you can't go out and do a 4-hour plus ride. Of course you can, but look what happened when the weather turned a little bit cool,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're depleted. You have no energy. And then you bonk.
All right. If you have mean stuff to say about us, you can go to our website at bikeshopsociety.com, and you can find our email there, and there's a thing at the form at the bottom. You can send us your comments about this, but
And
you know-
don't forget your Instagram.
I'm not that hardcore about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I am. The fasting thing is just work for me. It's just something that
You
it
gotta
agrees.
do what works for you.
Yeah, it just works for me.
Yeah.
It works with my mindset and my time. It's very simple. I eat at this time. I don't eat at that time. When I do eat, I can eat whatever I want. It's like, it's pretty
Glad it's
straightforward.
working for you, man. You're looking great.
The thing that is a little tricky though is the whole fueling thing. So the whole on the bike fueling thing, and
That's
so
the X factor.
it's so weird because for the first time in my life, it's like, oh, like what do I eat? When do I eat? It's like, how many calories do you eat per
To
hour?
be honest,
and how
that's
much-
the part I never really figured out because
Yeah.
I was doing the fasting like you, but I
Mhm.
wasn't really doing much riding.
Mhm.
When I started riding, Then I was like, okay, now what do I do though? Because I don't want to just be like carbo loading,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
at the same time, you do need some.
You do,
So I
and
was trying to do like the brown rice and the bananas and
yeah,
some really good whole food. But
yeah. Maybe
it's
we'll find somebody that can talk to us a little bit about
oh,
it.
I would
So hey,
I would love that.
so this is a good
Do 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 do
so
do
see
do do
how we
do.
what we talked about figuring it out as we go. I think we're both kind of in the same place that we're we're guys. We used to race bikes. You've raced on and off. I
Very
used to race a
slowly.
long time ago, and I'm kind of getting back
I
into it.
race very slow because I like to watch all the beautiful countryside.
Yeah, it's nice. It's just sit there and watch all the different
I didn't
wheels
want to
as they go.
embarrass the fast guys.
I'm about seeing the countryside these days.
Oh,
I'm really about going back, and I think I have no real desire to race anymore.
real quick, one of my favorite things at the going to the tour,
Uh,
it was always my favorite stuff was stuff I never even expected.
uh-huh.
Um, so they have the VIP thing. It's like a big, well, I don't know how big it is, but it's clearly an important thing for the tour.
At the depart.
Well, they have that at the départ and they had it at the finish maybe too, but it's en route along the stages. They have guys like Stephen Roche
Uh-huh.
and other former tour riders who just didn't want to do anything else except stay in cycling. And so what they do is they have these beautiful white shirts, pressed white shirts, and it has a little tour logo, and they have these like khakis, and they drive these really nice Skodas because that's the car
Official
sponsor,
car. Mm-hmm.
and they will drive whoever's thrown into their car, and it's usually some rich folks or folks from businesses,
Sponsor or something. Yeah.
whoever. It's
Mm-hmm.
like two or three people, and they just have this nice sedan, and they get to ride in the tour stage, and so
And
they get
Stephen
to
Roach drives the car.
yeah, and so at various points along the race route, like they're on the live route,
Mm-hmm.
on course, they would say. I think they would say on course and off course because when you're like working for the team, like you go off course, they give you like a route
Mm-hmm.
to get to the hotel or to the finish, so you can get ahead of the race and then be there and set up for when the riders come back. But anyway, the VIP would be on course, and so we'd be cruising along, and the peloton's ahead of us, and we're in the car number 2 in the back, and so we finally would kind of pass these VIP folks, and they pop open the trunk of the car, and they have this like this like basket they bring out, and there's kind of like this little table, and it's all kind of like built into the trunk. It's really like they kind of custom made it, I think. And they bring out the cheese and the wine and the
Really?
bread and the whatever, and they just stand on the side of the car and they're just drinking this like nice French wine, I imagine. And they're, granted it's already happened because it was ahead of us, but they get to see the peloton fly by at 50K, and they get to sip wine and eat cheese with Stephen Roche, and he can tell them all kinds of great stories.
And he would do the setup. He'd stop and
Oh
or
yeah,
did he have an
yeah.
assistant?
Oh yeah, no, it was just him and then like the 2 or 3 folks.
So
So he's in the Tour de France. He's in the
yeah.
convoys. He's in these.
He's in the car, but I mean, he's in
So-
charge of like
but
pulling it.
he actually
he
does it,
pulls a
yeah.
little
He
table
sets-
out and
yes.
sets up the
Yes,
table.
he sets up the cheese.
Really?
Yeah, he sets it up. I know I have pictures somewhere.
Oh,
And,
how much do you think he'll charge to come and do that for us?
And they have a number of these folks, and they're
Yeah,
they're all
they're all
they're mostly former pros.
sure.
And I'm sure they get paid decently. And
Oh.
they get to be at the tour.
We can get a Guido Bontempi
There you go.
to come and do that for us.
Eros Poli, someone
Uh-huh.
like that.
Crying Eros Poli.
Oh, I have a
He-
story about Eros Poli.
He was so excited when he won his first stage.
Oh my God, I have a good story about him.
And 2 days later, he was out.
And so you see these folks, doing it on the side of the road, and then they just pack up real quick. It's like a 2-minute unpacking and packing. Like they got it down.
Mm-hmm.
And they have I'm pretty sure there's like this little contraption they built into the trunk where it just kind of pulls out.
Yeah, sure.
And they got it down to a T, and then they get back in the car,
Jump
and then
in.
they go off route
They have
and
a
they
short.
get back en route,
Yeah, they have a
and
cool.
it's all mapped out and it's on their GPS.
Yeah,
And then they see the peloton like at the next point, and
yeah,
they're like, now they're going up a climb or
yeah.
going through a cool little village, and just day after day, you just get so used to seeing it, it just becomes
You're like, oh, there's Steven again
quotidian in a word.
with the cheese.
Yeah, and it's just there's the first couple times you see, you're like, oh my god, Stephen Roche.
Yeah,
And then it's like, oh yeah, it's very like every day. It's cool.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's kind of funny, and every day there's different VIP folks, and so you pay like a pretty penny.
Mm-hmm.
But it's usually it's sometimes it's celebrities,
Yeah,
French celebrities,
sure.
whatever.
I always love when the president of France is in the team car that day.
Yep.
That my so this time of the year, like in December, one of my favorite times in the pro peloton, when like
Is December?
December when the training camps are happening.
Oh, I
in
was gonna
Spain.
say there's no racing, Joe.
Well, it's when the training camps, the
Oh, the
winter training camps are happening,
Yes.
and the groups are riding together, but they're mismatched jerseys. There'll be like
Oh,
all
yes.
Astana, but
Yes.
in the back there'll be
Yes.
an EF guy,
Yep.
and there'll be like one guy with a
They
Movistar
still have to
jersey.
wear it
Yeah, till the end of
contractually.
yeah, for 2 more weeks.
Sponsor correct.
Yes, they're like, oh no, you can't change my jersey for 3 more weeks.
I just saw a photo on Insta. I think it was it's the Italian sprinter. Forgetting his name.
Viviani,
He's a European champ.
Elia Viviani.
No, not Viviani. Nizzolo.
Hmm. Man, you go deep,
N-
bro.
I love
Nizzolo.
Nizzolo. He's great, and he was in an all black kit, like he looked like like a weekend warrior
Really?
because he couldn't. I think he couldn't wear his kit.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
All black.
I think it was all black. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm pretty sure.
Like when Chevy is driving a car undercover
Yeah.
through the city.
I kind of love those like weird things about the sport. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if we really have that in other sports, but for me that's always just
Yeah, you never see
cycling.
like a Chicago Bull.
Yeah.
Like, hey, why's the net?
I can't wear my Lakers jersey until January 1st, or I'll be fined by my team.
Yeah, it's just one of those. But
blacklisted in
I
the
can-
peloton.
I can ride with you, but
Yeah,
I can't
right.
ride in your
Yeah,
jersey,
and
man.
you can't ask me about X,
No.
Y, Z.
Uh huh.
No, I kind of love the sport that way. Like it has lots of weird customs and traditions and
Yeah.
do's and don'ts and etiquette. And some of it's just like you ask, and I'll be in the team cars. I ask like some of the hardcore tour
Uh-huh.
folks. I'm like, why do they do this? And there's like, it's just what they do. It's just they just do it because they do it. Oh, okay.
Well, it was like black shorts back in the day.
Oh yeah, white socks, black shoes.
Well,
Sean Kelly.
But you know why they wore black shorts?
Actually, I don't know if I do.
Because of the church.
No,
Yeah.
because they were like
Kinda-
prudes or something.
Yeah.
Like,
Kind of
don't
hide
show your junk.
Yeah. To hide your.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Hide your junk. At least that's the story I always heard.
Oh my god,
I think cycling.
I never knew that.
Cycling shorts. I don't know. I'll do a deeper dive into it, but I've always understood that the black shorts were part of that.
Well,
to
when you
kind of-
see riders like, especially
Oh,
with
I
the world
know.
champs, they wear the white shorts, especially
Oh,
when it's raining.
I know.
Oh boy,
You're like, whoa,
that's a lot.
wow, you are a world champion.
Man, you're the
You
top.
are you are.
How's everything
Yeah,
going?
congratulations.
Congratulations.
You may not have
You
won.
picked-
You
you
may
picked
not
the
have
right
won the
pairs.
bike race,
Yeah.
but you won the life race, my
You won
friend.
the life race. Good gene lottery pool there.
Yeah.
But yeah. So the tour obviously is the culmination of it. But I just love a lot of the weird eccentric things about cycling,
Yeah.
like
There's,
turning the number 13 upside down. It's just fun,
Mhm. Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot of tradition that.
There's so much.
Yeah.
The etiquette and do this and don't do that, and it's funny. Yeah, but and then the VIP thing is funny too. Like I don't know if they have that at the Giro or the Vuelta.
Yeah. I mean, Vuelta. I
Do
know
they?
Vuelta has it. All the big.
Well, you know
tours-
why? Because the fucking tour owns.
They're all owned
the
by the
Vuelta.
same people now.
Well, not the Giro, but
Not the Giro,
yeah,
but
they-
yeah.
but so they bring it over there. It's a big business.
It's
They're
a cook-
very business savvy people. The Armory family. that
Yeah,
own
it's a
the
it's a
tour.
cookie cutter operate. I mean, and they borrow from. It's the same stuff they do at the NFL and
Yeah.
all that stuff with with.
But on the road, on the
Well,
side
not
of
on the road.
with, Stephen
not
Roche.
not the traveling circus, but I'm. I'm sure you go to the Super Bowl and you can have Bubba
Yeah.
Smith serve up a, turkey leg or something.
I'll end with one quick story. I was at the tour one year
Mm-hmm.
in the like a journalist car. I was with James Start,
Mm.
who is cool dude. I'm lucky to know. He was driving,
Mm-hmm.
and I had two colleagues I was working with at the time in the car, and I was in the back seat behind James. And we were we went to the I couldn't tell you what stage it was. It was a mountain stage, and I'm pretty sure we were in the Pyrenees. And we're the way James was. He loved to do a lot of his photography. Was he would be on course, so on the live race course, closed off, and so he had all the stickers and permission and all that and and whatnot on the car. So he was cruising along, and he can, you have to be careful. You can't just do anything you want, but you have some freedom. And he knows the tour. He's done like literally like 30 tours or something. So he's heavily credentialed and all that. Anyway, what he would like to do is get to very close to the top of the climb, and hopefully there would be switchbacks, so it had like a really cool like picture quality, like a really nice vista. And so he would get as close as possible, and then he would take a photo of the lead group as close as he could basically, and then he would have to jump in the car like Dukes of Hazzard style
Uh-huh.
and floor it and like get out of Dodge because there'd be just like one motorbike or two or maybe like a car, but just a couple vehicles like in front of the lead group. This is after like the whole motorcade, the main lead motorcade has gone by. So you're down to like that point. And so he would have to floor it. So that's what he did that day. And he's like, all right, guys, here's how we're doing this. Pay attention. And, James is super cool, but he's like, we have to get this right. Because if we don't get in the car fast enough and get ahead of the lead group, we have to wait until the last rider goes by. So the whole peloton. And on a mountain stage, that's like an hour or
Yeah,
45
yeah.
minutes or something. So we're like, okay, cool. So he's like, we're going to get out of the car. I'm going to take my shots. And then we have to jump back in the car fast. No BS. Like, get in the car and let's go. We're like, okay, cool. So we did that. So he gets his shots and we jump in the car. It's very exciting. And like, there's like spectators around looking at us like, oh, wow. Like it was a rush. It was kind of cool. And who's climbing up in the lead group? It's like, Andy Schleck or
Oh.
Frank Schleck, one of the Schlecks, maybe both Schlecks, and Concert or whoever else. I can't remember. I can
Mm-hmm.
look it up. It was 2010 or 2011. So they're like, I can like see them with my own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're that close, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, they're coming up this little switchback.
Yeah.
So we jump in the car, and then
It always looks slower in person
oh
too,
yeah,
doesn't it?
oh yeah,
You're just like, why these guys are going really
yeah,
slow.
yeah. I'm like, really? And then you're like, oh, they've been doing it for 45 minutes, and this is the fourth climb of the day.
Yeah.
And I can never ride that fast. But we book out, and we're just like, let's just say a block from the
Mm-hmm.
very top of the climb. So then we go over the climb, and then you can just like see down this huge valley and like this hairpin descent. And so, have you seen Ronin, the movie Ronin?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
I've seen it so many times. It's embarrassing.
That is a good movie. Maybe
I fucking
maybe
love that
after
movie.
this I'll watch it.
Dude, it's so good. Well, a lot of it's ends in Nice, right? Downtown Nice. But anyway, we start bombing this descent.
There's a bar called McMahon's
Oh,
in Nice.
yes. So, I think
Uh-huh.
I've been there. Have you ever been there? So we're bombing this descent. There's cars ahead of us. We catch up to the cars that were ahead of the peloton basically, and some motorbikes about. A little busy traffic, but everyone's flying. We're doing 50, 60, 70 miles an hour. And next thing we know, first of all, I'm in the back seat, and this was the only time in I think it's the only time in my adult life I've ever been scared.
Mm-hmm.
Like scared.
Yeah.
Like really scared. I started to have I think it was a panic attack. I've never had one before, but I think that's what it was.
Because of how.
So in the back, do you know the difference between like riding in the front seat and the back seat?
Yeah, yeah.
For some people, it's no big deal. For some people, it's very dramatically different, especially if you're going fast and there's hairpin turns
Uh huh.
and you're doing 50 miles an hour into a hairpin turn with no guardrail, and there's a little bit of gravel, and If you go over that, it's probably game over.
Yeah, yeah.
And we have a long descent. This descent's like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
This is a long. Who's on our bumper? So I'm telling James, I'm asking him as cool as I can without embarrassing myself in front of 3 other grown men. I'm like, I was like breathing. I was like, oh my God. I'm like kind of sweating. I'm like, oh my God. Like it just felt in the back seat. I think in the front seat, I actually would have been fine. Because
Yeah.
I normally sat in the front seat, but that day I sat in the back because basically my boss was riding shotgun.
Oh wow.
So I was in the back, and I'm normally a great passenger. Like
Yeah.
I don't backseat drive. I just if I trust the person, I'm like, this is great. Like I'm your dream
Yeah.
passenger. I'll help navigate if you want
Yeah.
snacks, what have you. I'm your guy. But on this day, I was like, oh my God. So I was like fearful for my life. I thought we were gonna blow. We were screeching into these turns, and this is a basic rental car. This is not the sports car. We're in like a Ford Focus, kind of,
Yeah, yeah.
a basic rental car. It was a Renault, whatever
Yeah.
the Renault version of the Ford Focus. Or who comes up on our bumper? Oh, so I'm like, James, I'm like, could you just slow down a little bit? Like, I'm sorry, I'm just freaking out a little bit. And he's like, Daniel, I can't. He's like, I can't. I have to. It's like, he's like, look behind you. This is a true story. I look behind me. Who's fucking behind me? I'm not making this up. Who's behind me?
Alberto Contador.
No, Stephen Roche and his fucking VIP car.
No.
I'm not kidding. Joe, he is 1 foot off our bumper.
Stephen Roche.
Stephen Roche, VIP, the same car that I've been seeing every day with his wine and cheese out of the trunk. And he's got some VIPs in there. He is 1 foot to 2 feet off our bumper. We're doing 60 miles an hour down a descent, hitting these turns. And, you would think he would get a little gapped around the turns and stuff.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
he's right there. He's driving it like it's 10 miles an hour on a flat.
Wow.
The average people on the tour are like race car drivers.
Oh no, I know. I mean, I've been in the team cars.
I
and
feel like a
it's-
lot of people, like where we grew up, and like everyone thinks they're like a great driver. They're
Yeah,
on
yeah.
294
No.
South. They
Yeah.
think they're the bomb.
Yeah, no. No.
You're in these. I think I'm a pretty good driver. I'm in this car, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not the driver I thought I was. And so Stephen Roche is 1 to 2 feet off our bumper, and James is like, Daniel, I can't. Look who's behind me. If I stop, if I slow down, he's gonna be. And he actually was beeping his horn
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because
He's
there's a
gotta
car behind him.
Uh-huh.
And then what's behind him? Thomas Vogler, Alberto Contador. I think Contador was there.
Yeah, because
I have to check that. I know Vogler was there because he was on Team Europe car. Remember the green
the
kit?
green kit. Yeah.
The Schlecks, I think, were there. But whatever, the big guns. And they're not far behind them.
You guys got to stay ahead of the
And
race.
you know what that's like. If you ever see everyone, the world goes nuts. Like, oh, get that car out of the way. So
Yeah.
that's what we're dealing with. And I think Frankie Andreu was in the car with us because he was doing the Tour Talk, which is a series that James Stark created. Kudos to him for the great idea. So he did that. We're all working at Bicycling Magazine.
Oh, all right.
So I was working there as the online editor for 2 years, and James was the European correspondent.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hired Frankie to do the Tour Talk with James. So at the end of every stage,
Oh, they were doing the video series,
they would do
right?
a video series
yeah, I
called
remember
Tour
that.
Talk, and it was
Yeah.
great. What a
Yeah.
great series! It had a short life, two seasons, I think, but it was so good. I loved it.
Yeah,
People loved it.
That was very good. Yeah.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so I was having I was hyperventilating. I was like having kind of a panic attack. It was fine after like 5-7 minutes, and then it kind of was less steep, and we were kind of like on straighter roads. So then I was okay. I don't mind going fast in cars at all. This was like a physical thing that I couldn't like control. Like I was in the back seat, and I think the way you're in a back seat is very different.
Yeah.
And being in the front, and of course, driving is a different feel too, because you have the
You're in
feel.
control,
You
yeah.
know,
Mhm.
you can feel the road, like when you're not, and then in the back. So anyway, that was the most scary time of my adult life, and what an experience in the tour. I mean, a lot of people want to be there and be close up, and I was very lucky. And you would often hear like, "Oh, you're so lucky. That's so great." And that moment, I'm like, I don't want to be this close. This is too close.
Yeah. Being in it. Yeah. That, and it's funny that you mentioned it because this is on a descent and a mountain descent.
Yeah.
those have also been the scariest times for me on a bicycle.
Yeah.
People are always afraid of the climb. Oh, how hard the
Oh,
climb's going
I'll
to be so
climb all
hard. I'll
day.
climb all day
I'll
long.
climb all day.
The descents are especially when you don't know. I mean, we're from Chicago, Danny. My first time in Europe, I was like, "What
The
the
only climb I ever did was that little steep one in
in
Lamont.
Lamont, home of Christian
Yeah,
Vandeveld.
I
It was
think
good enough for him to
yeah,
get fourth in the
I
Tour
think
de
I did
France.
that 20 times one day or something.
It's
It's legit.
those descents, man. I mean, it was
You
like,
have no idea
whoa.
until you go and do that.
I was so. I mean, like white knuckle. I
After
was.
that,
I was so afraid. I mean, that's the part that I would lament. I was like, oh my god, we got to go downhill. We got to go downhill,
anxiety,
and
yeah.
it's just like,
And then your nerves actually make it even more
oh,
dangerous.
it's so nervous, and
Yeah.
you just fly. You're flying. You're
And
flying.
we
You're
know like there have
just
been a
like,
lot of infamous cases of pros
mhm.
having a lot of anxiety and they would lose races. They would
Yeah, yeah. And
even
and
crash themselves out or sometimes quit races because they couldn't.
Gianni Bugno
Well,
infamously had vertigo. He
yes.
had some sort of ear thing.
And did we talk about this? You know how he got it fixed? He went to this is like a movie. He went to like a Swiss doctor
Uh huh.
in some like retreat and they fixed it with classical music.
Really?
It sounds like I'm making it up, but I'm 99% sure that's true. I remember reading about it at the time.
Huh. Like
There was
classic
some
rock, like
therapy
Air of the Night, me
they
Phil Collins.
they they treated it, I believe, with some version of like music therapy, and it was like classical music to
Really?
equal them out. Because yeah, it was vertigo.
Huh.
Vertigo is not a joke, man.
Yeah, no, I mean
Vertigo
I
is
remember I remember reading that.
vertigo is like a real freaking thing.
That
Until you have it, like you.
oh, I could tell you used to get Winning magazine.
Yeah, there you go.
We were at the same publications. Yeah, I think that was in there. I think that was like I remember reading something about
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
You know.
So that was definitely the scariest thing. I don't know how we got talking about that, but that was the scariest thing. But the VIP thing was hilarious, and it was almost like a punchline. James he's like Daniel, I can't. He's like look behind us, and I turn around. There's freaking Stephen Roche.
There he is. He's everywhere.
He's 2 feet off our bumper.
Jeez.
He's like I literally can't slow down. Like he's there. Vogler's about half block probably behind him. I don't know how far he was, but he was very close.
Yeah.
And I just remember like, well, so that was they probably have maybe changed the rules a little bit. I think sometimes, journalists, photographers, they push things a little bit. I'm not sure what was going on after that. I mean, we had no issue; there was no problem, but you could see how that could become like a bad situation.
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
But I was like, James, I think I'm done with the mountains. Because every day I had an option. I could go in one car that went straight to the press room off course.
Uh-huh.
And, on the map, they just show you everything.
Yeah.
And then, or you go with the race, so you're on course. And I almost every day went on course. 1 or 2 times I went to the press room, usually because I had to get some work done or
Yeah.
we heard, this is a whole other part of the tour, but we heard they had good internet because a lot of the press rooms have shitty internet.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't even upload like photos and they make you pay for the internet. It's like a whole racket.
Really?
Yeah, it's for another podcast. I can give you some of the inside stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting to know because that's
It's like
a
nerdy inside stuff, and it's kind of.
It's good to know.
But like, the tour is a money-making operation in ways you didn't even think about.
Yeah, I didn't realize
They make money off the journalists who are covering their races that promote the race.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I guess they've got to make money everywhere they can. 'Cause they don't get entry fees, right? They don't. They can't charge. They're not charging an admission fee.
Well, the TV rights are huge.
Yeah. No, I mean I get that the TV rights are huge, but still, if it was, it's a Super Bowl every day.
No one's buying tickets.
No one's buying tickets. So I guess
I just think it's a little bit, in my opinion, it's unethical, immoral to charge journalists. They charge a lot. It's not. It's like 10 or 20 euros a day
for internet.
For internet.
Wow.
To write about their race and to promote their race.
Well, but
no one else does that.
No.
No other races do that.
No other races at Tour de France, I guess, right?
I mean, I love it. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, you're happy to pay.
But there's certain absurdities to it, and you're like, what?
It's on bicycling. It was on Bicycling magazine.
Yeah, but it was. I was always very lucky to go, but
yeah,
it was cool, but the paradox is the closer you are to the race, the less you know about it in a way, because sometimes I didn't even know, like the internet was so bad,
Uh huh.
like you couldn't even get like a good cell reception. Like if you're at home, you know way more about what's going on in the race than being at the race, because it's a paradox. Like you're in it,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but you're too close to see it.
it's
You know
like
what I mean?
watching a football game.
Yeah.
Being at a
Right.
football game.
Right.
Football's made for television.
You're in a car pretty much the whole tour.
Yep.
People are like, "Oh, you get to go to the tour." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in a car 98% of the time."
Yeah, team car. You don't see anything. Everybody thinks you see stuff in the
You
tour
like
team
randomly
car.
see like Taylor Finney coming back
Maybe,
for a bottle.
yeah.
Or
If they
you're
come,
like, "Oh,
if they come back for
yeah."
something.
If they come back,
I mean, you might see something if you happen to be in the number one car of the
yeah,
guy who's in the breakaway. That's the ideal situation. Like
Yep.
if there's a breakaway,
yeah,
5 guys,
Yep.
and you have one of those guys in there, and you're in the first car,
oh, it's
and then
sweet.
and then that's great.
Yes.
Because the whole race you are,
Yep.
40 miles. You're
Mhm.
behind this little group of five, and but even then, it's like, when you're in a car, those guys are going really hard,
Yep.
but they're going 25 miles an hour.
Exactly. Yeah.
So sitting in a car at 25 miles an hour for 50 miles, mm,
or 100.
it's
Yeah.
not very exciting. I mean, it's like you're just watching these
Yeah.
guys pedal, and I get that the effort's there and the exertion,
Oh yeah.
but it's very hard to perceive that effort and exertion when you're sitting in a car.
Yep.
And so, besides them maybe coming back to get a bottle or something, there's not a lot of action necessarily. And even when they attack, it looks like slow motion when you're sitting in a
Yeah.
car. It's just
On
like,
TV, it's so
you're like,
dramatic.
oh
and
my God,
blurry, and
he's going 32
Yeah.
miles an hour.
in the car, you're like, all right.
Yeah, when you're in the car, you don't
This is
don't
like my
really
group
feel anything.
ride, you know?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I remember when my first few experiences with it, I was like, wow, this is a little anticlimactic, but a little anticlimactic.
You're being polite. Yeah, this is damn boring.
Yeah, the scary part was I mean, the jostling amongst the team cars.
Oh, that's the
The
race. and the
swearing
race.
and the beeping and the honking, and I'm surprised more
Oh, it's
people don't,
hell.
don't kill each other back there.
I'm
because,
totally surprised.
just like you described that ride. I mean, those guys, the guys that are driving, and they're usually doing it with one hand and another hand hanging out of the car or on a radio. I mean, the drivers are so distracted.
They're
'Cause they have
super
a-
distracted. I did find that I have to say I was at ease in a sense. I mean, there was always some nervousness. You'd be inhuman if you weren't nervous
Mhm.
with a lot of what goes on, just because it's just crazy. You're not used to it. But I have to say, I was only in with a couple different drivers and tour cars. I have to say the ones I was with, like I trusted them. I was
Well,
they,
yeah, I
they
mean-
made they instilled confidence. Like
Yeah.
they weren't like taking too many risks,
Mhm.
but they do the co-pilot. The guy in shotgun, he's doing quite a lot. They both do radio.
Yeah.
But the side guy is doing a lot of the navigation. He's
Mhm.
doing a lot of the busy work. But it's a fair point. The driver is doing quite a lot too.
Yeah, there's a lot.
And-
There's a lot to keep in. They're watching a lot of stuff.
There's a
too.
lot of stuff just in general.
Yeah.
There's some overload.
I mean, I've been in the car where the director is the driver.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, it's like he, at least back in those days, the
Still today,
it was the director was driving.
when I was
you know?
when I was at the tour, it was the same directors every year I was there. I think
Mhm.
Charlie Wigalius
Mhm.
and Andreas Kloden. Or no, not Andreas Kloden. Andreas. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. Former German pro. Just forgetting his name now. But it was Charlie and Andreas, and they're the two directors.
Mm.
And they were riding. They would take. I think they would take turns driving.
Mhm.
But they were driver and shotgun.
And you're in the back with the cooler.
No, that was usually the mechanic,
Uh-huh.
and that's team one or car one.
Gotcha.
I was in team car two, and it was usually he's a director. His name was Tom Southam.
Mm.
Cool dude. He is one of the directors. I don't know if he's like got the same title. I don't know if he's assistant director or director, but either way, he's basically a director as well. And I would ride shotgun, and then there was usually a mechanic in the back of us as well. So behind the driver was like wheels. Then there was me shotgun and the driver behind me. So that was like super cool. But Yeah, yeah. It's a long way of saying yes. The directors are driving and doing a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
stuff too. So they're doing strategy,
Yeah, I mean, it's just a
tactics.
lot of stuff going
It's
on,
a
you
lot
know?
of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff going on, and in some, in some of those cases that European roads, if it's a fun course, you're not in a lot of highways, you're in a lot of back roads, man. Some of those roads are challenging even when you got both hands on the steering wheel and you don't have anything but the road to pay attention to.
100%. Andreas Clear, I forgot.
Gotcha.
He was on team. He was a pro. He had some like great results in the
Some
classics.
Palmares, some
Some
good Palmares.
Palmares.
Yeah.
He had some really good results. He was on Cervelo test team, I think, if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not mistaken. He was on some really good. Oh, he's on Telecom as well.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and he was
Real
on
German.
not Cervelo test team. I don't think he was. He was on whatever early version of like Garmin, like one of the early Garmin teams,
Slipstream.
which is how he ended up with them.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, those guys are so cool. Charlie Wigalis, he's an amazing guy. Have you ever read his book?
No.
Um,
Mm.
I think it's called Domestique or something. He wrote it, I think, with Tom Southam in part. But I have a copy of it if you want.
Yeah.
It's about
I'll check it out.
his kind of career. It's a really good read.
Really?
Yeah, it's about being a domestique. He's kind of in cycling. I think if you get into the nerdery of it, he's kind of regarded as one of the great domestiques
Hmm.
because he was super talented, but he kind of just rode for all these leaders. And his big race was the Giro. I don't know if he ever did the Tour. Maybe once he did the Tour, but he did the Giro like a ton of times.
Yeah.
And just because he was so good and like he was a climber, he's kind of like a lighter, smaller guy, but like ace climber, and so he'd be like the last guy, with the leader and the final climbs. Just by nature of that, he would still get like top 10, top 15, top 20, something like that.
Because he
Like
was like,
he
yeah,
would still do like great.
he was the first of that
Yeah,
group that got left
yeah.
behind. Wow.
That always fascinated me. It's for another time, but that's always fascinated me too. Is like, some teams are so deep with their talent. Like
Oh, it's nuts.
even the guy he knows he's not going to win a stage.
Mhm.
He's not going for GC. He's helping. But they're just so good
Yeah. They're
that,
still.
that he's still going to be like eighth.
Yeah, yeah. They finished 8th in the tour.
It's like, and they don't even think anything of it. Like,
Yeah. They're
like,
like,
well,
yeah,
you got top 10. It's like,
yeah,
oh, was I? Okay.
whatever.
It's all about the
It
podium.
was all done. That was,
That was always so mind blowing. I'm like, eighth in the Tour de France. Your life is going to change. They're like, what?
they're like, no. No, I got a contract for next year. I'm good to, and some of those guys, I mean, they're just kind of resigned to their fate. They know they don't have the extra speed to win ever. And so they know they're going to make a really good living
Yep.
doing that.
Yeah.
They're going to ride that guy up the last hill so he can finish it off.
They'll
Eh, eh,
spend every
every
watt.
Yeah, the you know who it is, the guy who's really good at that right now is the Polish guy. What's his
Oh,
name?
Mikhail Kwiatkowski.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he seems like a, kind
They
of,
call him Kwiatko or something like that.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he's like,
He's great. I saw him win in the World Championships in Ponferrada in
oh, did
Spain.
you?
I went to the Worlds for that.
Oh, nice.
And it's for another podcast, but I remember he attacked on like one of the last climbs.
Uh-huh. Good. I mean, great rider. I mean,
And
that's like
he soloed to the win. He was kind of an unexpected winner,
yeah, yeah.
if
yeah,
you can say that.
yeah,
But what a baller!
yeah,
Oh, he's so crazy strong.
yeah. I mean, he's won his fair share, but in the Grand Tours, he's just doesn't,
Oh,
know.
it's just he's at the front. Just,
yeah, he's always just turning himself inside out for whoever,
Yes.
for somebody,
yes,
you name it, but it's never for him.
Right.
Maybe the random stage, here
yeah.
and there, but
No, you're absolutely right. He's definitely one of the, I think, top domestiques these days for sure. There's a really cool photo from his junior days. So he's from Poland, and then you have
Mhm.
Peter Sagan from Slovakia. Then, no, that would have been Slovakia, I think, as well. That's how young they are. I was going to say Czechoslovakia at the time, but there's a picture of the two of them racing together as juniors.
really,
Yeah, Kwiatkowski and Sagan. It's pretty cool.
for like their home countries or same
They're,
team,
I think they were racing national,
uh-huh,
like so in their
in their kits,
yeah.
like
I
amateurs
think
or
I
something,
think it was like some sort of
juniors or
the peace race, or I don't know what it was.
Uh,
One of those
I miss the
older
peace
races.
race,
The peace
the
race.
milk Ross.
We need more peace races. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? The world needs a peace race. Let's bring that. Let's bring back. Who do we talk to about bringing back the peace race?
Um, Dalai Lama.
What's the peace? Was the peace race?
Peace race was more like Czech Republic or then Czechoslovakia was the peace race, I believe.
In the milk
The
Ross?
milk Ross was Ireland.
That was Ireland,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
The milk Ross.
Yeah.
Remember that?
It's I think Irish for race, maybe
I don't know.
Ross. Yeah, it is because I did a race called the Ross Donegal. But yeah, as a weekend warrior. But yeah, the milk Ross was cool. They're like it was a cool race because like it brought together like an interesting kind of peloton. Like you had some like really top teams and like really good pros, but I think it allowed like elite riders at some point, um, for lack of a better word, amateurs. So
Hmm. Yeah, the final peace race was held in 2006.
was that in Czech Republic?
It was the peace
Poland?
race was an annual multiple stage bicycle race held in the Eastern Bloc states of Czechoslovakia, East Germany, and Poland.
Yep.
First organized in 1948, it was originally created with the intent of relieving tensions existing between Central European countries following the interwar period and World War II.
There you go.
And then it ended in 2006.
Because there was peace.
Wow. So, I mean, if we were to get, I guess Peter Sagan would be the closest thing to Czechoslovakia, right?
Well, yeah. So when
Yeah.
when Czechoslovakia split up into Czech Republic and Slovakia, so
Yeah.
he's from like it would have been like Slovakia,
Yeah.
modern day Slovakia.
So, I mean, he could probably represent that. Or what's his name? So the guy who just won Volta. What's his name?
Um,
The guy who's so good.
Roglic.
Yeah.
Oh, Slovenia.
You know, he's Slovene.
They're
He's
Slovenians.
Slovene.
Yeah.
He's not Czech. I thought he was Czech.
No, so Roglic and Pogacar, they're both
They're both
Slovenian.
Slovenian.
Yeah.
I get mixed
Slovenia.
up. All
No, it's
that.
easy to.
It's like it's like over there.
I went into Slovenia 10 feet.
Really?
Yeah. I was in Italy. I was in Trieste,
Uh-huh.
which is in the northeast tip of Italy on the Adriatic.
Oh.
And I walked, I wanted to say I went into Slovenia. So
Uh-huh.
I was at the border
So you went in.
and I went 10 feet and walked back.
It's like Stripes. It's like your version of Stripes where you went in.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, no, it was goofy, but I think I have a picture of it somewhere. But yeah, that was fun. No, Roglic and Pogacar are the Slovenian
Slovenian.
sensations.
Yeah. And who's East Germany? That was Cloden, right? Did Cloden have a son racing bikes?
Are you thinking of Zabel?
I think it was Zabel.
Eric Zabel has a son, Rick Zabel, who's a sprinter.
Yeah. I think he was Eastern European. I think Eric Zabel was an Eastern European.
You might be right.
I think
and
he
maybe,
was. I think he's one of those. I remember him in a gray jersey.
Maybe like Ulrich as well, or no? Or is he more Berlin?
I think Eric
Like the
Zabel
West, the West.
is a German former professional. I know he was German, but I thought he was East German. East Berlin. Yeah, he's from East Berlin.
That's
Eric Zabel. I always liked Eric Zabel.
yeah. Well, so I rode my bike. No, that's not true. I took a train to watch the finish of Milan San Remo when I lived in Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a relatively short train ride, and so I saw the finish. And it wasn't so I think he won that year, but it wasn't the year when he threw up too early. But remember that one?
Uh huh.
And he lost over the line because he posted up too early.
Really? No, I forgot that one.
You're kidding.
No, I mean,
That's
some of that stuff is a little bit of a blur to me.
And one of my favorite riders ended up winning, whose name I'm forgetting. Oh my god. So Zabel, MSR. I'm gonna pull it up. The famous, because he won that race like I think 4 times. Oscar Freire.
Oscar
Freire.
Friday. Yeah, Spanish guy.
That was the famous one.
Oh, wow.
So he posted up a little bit too soon, and Oscar Freire had the
Oh
great bike
man,
throw, and he won Milan San Remo.
really?
300 kilometers down to an inch.
Gee.
Well, that's remember Hausler and Cavendish.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was not as close, but pretty close.
I mean, Oscar Freire was like world champion 3 or 4 times.
This was 2004, so I was already back in the states. Yeah, he was the silent assassin. Oh my God, I loved Oscar Freire. So when I was in Ponferrada,
Uh huh.
um, I saw the women's race first day, saw the men's race second day. After the men's race, we were gonna drive to Gijón, this little town
Mm-hmm.
north of there, and on the way out of town, we're like, we'll just grab a coffee. So we go to this coffee. We had a little biscotti kind of thing, and who's sitting at the table next to us? Oscar Freire.
Really?
And I was so nervous, I didn't go up and say hi to him. So I was too shy.
You didn't say anything?
I'm like a grown man, and I'm like, I can't go. He was talking to like someone else,
Gotcha.
and I felt like I'd be dumb.
Seems like a pretty friendly cat.
What? Oh, he seemed very friendly,
yeah.
and I always loved his racing style.
Yep.
I'm always surprised though. He was very small.
He's like 5'8".
He's a small guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Like a lot of cyclists are really small.
Almost all of them when you
Like,
see them up close.
You see the top 10 riders at the tour,
Mm-hmm.
they're so tiny.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they're all like sticks.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, in the photos,
But
it's
also
funny
kind of
because
shortish.
a lot of them are.
A lot of them.
They're
Not
like
all- not all.
jockeys.
Yeah.
Kind of like jockeys.
Yes.
Yeah, well, you know, it's the power to weight ratio
Yeah.
and the size and all of that stuff. I mean,
Like if you see him, you're just like,
I mean, even somebody like Adrie Vanderpoel, like they look gigantic on when you're watching them. But I bet if we
you
saw
mean
those
Matthew Vanderpoel?
oh,
You're thinking of his dad, Andre.
Adrie, right?
You thinking
Adrie
of his
Vanderpoel?
dad?
Is that his dad, Adrie?
His dad.
And Matthew Vanderpoel
Matthew is
is the son now,
current
right?
Golden Wonder Boy.
The guy who just goes nuts. He does ride with feeling.
He's my
the
favorite.
heart.
He's my favorite.
Is he?
Yeah.
I like him.
He's my favorite rider today.
He rides with the
I'm
heart.
a fanboy. I'm just going to admit it.
He rides with the heart.
Yes.
We should reach out to him. Well, maybe he'll talk to us. Well, of the heart, we'll talk.
He might be in that
We'll say we want to talk.
unreachable zone, but
Really, you think so?
well,
We're from America. Those guys love it. You know they love America.
so I told you I'm going to the Cross Worlds in Arkansas, right?
He's not going though.
So he and Wout van Aert, they both said
Yeah,
they're
the
not
head-
going now. So I'm kind of like, should I still go? They're going to be great riders there. It's just going to be different
Be a
kind of
snob.
race.
Be a snob and don't go.
But I kind of want to go still.
I know, but be a snob and be like, you know what? I'm not going. What am I gonna? I don't need. You know
You
what?
should road trip.
I'm
with me.
above
You
this.
should road trip with me. It'd be
I've
fun.
had
We could do a podcast from there.
I've had Stephen Roche on my tail, man. I'm not gonna go down to some race and catch, you know, a second level scorecard race. Yeah, no headliners here.
So I don't know if you know these cartoon characters. Have you ever heard of Podge and Raj? Do you know who I'm talking about? So Podge and Raj are these claymation. I think they're claymation. It's a very irreverent, I think, kind of lewd comedy like show.
From England.
I think it's Irish.
Uh-huh.
I could be wrong. No, I think it's Irish. It's RTE. That's Irish.
Okay.
So Podge and Raj, that's their name. They've been around for a long time. So when Roglic and Pogacar started coming up, people started calling them Pog and Rog.
Oh.
So there's your little tie-in to Irish culture.
Oh, there you go. Well, we'll leave it right there.
We'll leave it right there. It's been fun, Joe.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
Adios.